The long journey is about to reach an end of the road. The season began with 30 men with hopes for a championship. For some, that road has been impossible, even painful. But there are 500 miles to go today, and there are a historic 4 men left. 2000 is the most competitive season in kart history, with 10 different race winners, 5 championship leaders, and the closest points race ever. 2 weeks ago, drama unfolded on the streets down under. Gilles de Ferran, hoping to clinch the title, crashed in the very first corner with the '99 champion Juan Montoya. Roberto Moreno was poised to capitalize until cold tires ended his day. Paul Tracy's efforts to catch de Ferran were dashed when he tangled with Oriol Servia. Benefiting were race winner Adrian Fernandez and second place Kenny Brett. 30 men have raced more than 4,000 miles in 5 countries and 4 continents for 419 points. Now, only 4 men, 500 miles and 21 points remain. At day's end, one will be champion. Live from California Speedway, Fontana, California, ESPN Speed World is proud to present our coverage of the final race of the Kart FedEx Championship Series for 2000, the 500. Crowd's been pouring in here early this morning, still pouring in, and they are here to see a 4-way battle in the championship. Roberto Moreno is no longer part of the fight. He would have had to qualify for the pole, and he didn't do it, but it's still de Ferran, Fernandez, Paul Tracy, and Kenny Brett, who are all and each looking for their very first championship title. Hello and welcome to California Speedway. I'm Paul Page. It is an overcast day. There is a very remote possibility of rain, but it hopefully will not be part of this championship fight. We're going to introduce you to each of the contenders in this championship battle now, and we'll begin with Paul Tracy, who tends to live life just a little bit differently than the rest of us. For example, for this race, he's dyed his hair green.
Everything in my life that's beautiful is green. My grass is green, my car is green, and hopefully this weekend the money's going to be green.
The money is, it will be a nice prize, but to be honest, for me, the main thing is to win the championship.
It's the tightest championship I think that I ever been in, and I mean, if you look at other series on this level, I mean, it's you don't see this kind of competition anywhere.
To win one of these championships is something I've been dreaming of ever since I was a young child.
It's definitely pretty intense.
To run up front in this championship, that I think is a huge challenge.
And talking about those contenders, perhaps the easiest job goes to Gilles de Ferran. Not so easy, though, when you consider the scenario. The simplest scenario is for him to win the race or to finish second. Gilles de Ferran took the points lead at Laguna Seca, but a first-lap crash in Australia prevented him from clinching his first-ever kart title and car owner Roger Penske's first title since 1994. De Ferran is a 2-time winner this season, including on the oval at Nazareth.
Bonus points have been absolutely huge for Gilles de Ferran in his bid to win the championship. He has 8 of those, none bigger than the one he got yesterday when all he did was rip off the fastest lap in the history of open wheel racing, an average of 241.4 miles per hour. It was an absolutely perfect lap. It puts him in an absolutely perfect position to now chase a possible $2 million payday.
Adrian Fernandez gained 21 points on championship leader Gilles de Ferran at Australia. Fernandez, the '99 California winner, has scored the most points in the second half of this season. Today, he looks to maintain that momentum and claim his first kart championship.
And for Adrian Fernandez, it's been a pretty typical weekend. He hasn't qualified as well as he would like, but consider the other 2 races he won this year. First in Brazil, he qualified 16th, and then in our last race in Australia, he qualified 17th. So starting 14th today, no big deal for Adrian Fernandez. This team is known for their great pit strategy. Now, last year, he won $1 million by winning this race. He would love to do his final race for the Patrick team and make it a big $2 million.
For the first time in his 10-year career, Paul Tracy comes to the final race with a chance at the championship. Tracy is a three-time winner this season and needs a win today to claim the title. Although he is a six-time oval winner, Tracy is winless on super speedways in his career.
Paul Tracy's job is simple. He needs to go out and win today, but he also needs some luck. He needs Fernandez and DeFerrin to break. He's getting ready to go out, but I have to tell you, he hasn't had the best record here at Fontana. In 3 races at this track, his best finish so far is 14th. So today is the day he needs to change his luck.
Rookie Kenny Breck is winless this season, but he needs to win today in order to have a chance at the Kart Crown. He led 18 laps at Michigan before crashing with Christian Fittipaldi. Breck is an experienced 500-mile race winner, winning the '99 Indy 500.
When Gilles DeFerrin got that bonus point yesterday, it had a huge impact on Kenny Breck's chances for a championship. Now Breck not only has to win the race, he has to lead the most laps and hope at the same time that DeFerrin encounters problems and does not score any points. No matter how this shakes out today, what a first year it has been for this young rookie driver to the Kart FedEx Series. Kenny Breck will start back here today in the number 8 spot.
The championship will be decided today after a grueling 500 miles on the 2-mile California Speedway. The season's other super speedway race was spectacular. The Michigan 500 featured 53 lead changes and a dramatic last lap duel between Michael Andretti and Juan Montoya.
Imagine driving 240 miles an hour for 3 hours. Of course, the high banks can be physically grueling. Every time the drivers turn the steering wheel, they'll be experiencing 4 Gs of cornering force. But it's the mental game that really tests the mettle of the drivers. We saw earlier in the year at Michigan, there were 53 official lead changes at the stripe, but over 140 changes for the lead around the track. That means for the drivers, there'll always be someone in front of them, behind them, to either side. The slightest mistake can end in disaster. If you like adrenaline coursing through your veins, you've come to the right place.
And consider, here are the contenders in the championship and how they performed in this year's Michigan 500, the only other 500-mile race that we have had this season. Now let's take a look at the starting grid for the running of the California 500. On the front row with a new track record and closed course record, Gilles DeFerrin. Michael Andretti outside in his final ride at Newman Haas Racing. Michael looks to score his 32nd win with that team. In the second row, it's Christian Fittipaldi and Helio Castroneves. Castroneves scored 3 wins this season. It ties him for the most on the kart circuit. And then there's Juan Montoya, who looks to become the first man since Al Unser in 1978 to win 3 500-mile races in one season. He's inside 3. His teammate Jimmy Vasser is outside 3. Jimmy's making his last start at Chip Ganassi Racing. Today he hopes to become the first 2-time winner of the California race. Dario Franchitti and Kenny Breck, one of the contenders, make up the 4th row. Contender Paul Tracy is in row 5, along with rookie Alex Tagliani. Back in the 6th row, it's Patrick Carpentier, and Tony Kanaan starts on the outside of 6. In the 7th row, Max Pappas and contender Adrian Fernandez. But Pappas is looking for bookend wins this season after starting the year with his first kart win at Miami. In row 8, part of the Mears gang in his first Champ Car start. It's Casey Mears, son of Roger, nephew to Rick. And row 9, there's Memo Gidley. And Cristiano D'Amata on the outside. D'Amata scored his first career win and the first win for PTI earlier this year at Chicago. In row 10, it's Roberto Moreno and Alex Barron, who had that great run at Surfers. Moreno's best career season kept him in the points fight until qualifying yesterday. In the 11th row, Mark Blundell and Mauricio Guzman. Now, Blundell won here at California in '97. Today, he makes his last start for Pac West Racing. In the 12th row, Michel Jourdain Jr. and Shinji Jimmy the Rocket Nakano. Row 13, Tarso Marquez and Luis Garcia Jr. Now, that's how they'll line up. Now, here's a look at the title contenders in start position 1st through 8th, 9th through 14th. And this is the number of times someone starting in those positions have won a 500-mile race. So every guy here certainly has the potential of winning a 500-mile race, every one of the 4 contenders. We'll be back with the green flag and the start as they run for the Vanderbilt Cup and for the Kart FedEx Series Championship. field now begins to circulate behind the pace cars. Here's our race analysis for the 500 with the 250 lap distance and the amazing speeds. Fuel stops could start at 37, could start earlier.
Well, I certainly think if we see an early yellow, we'll see drivers come in and try to work the different fuel strategies. We'll be on board today with Mauricio Gugelmin starting back in 22nd.
And we've got plenty of onboard cameras for you. There is Mark Blundell as well. You can see those clouds overhead on board Cristiano D'Amata. New livery. He's got some yellow on both the front and the rear wings there. And, of course, up toward the front of the field, Jimmy Vasser will also carry onboard camera. The contenders on the big ovals, on the super speedways, and how they have performed. Well, there it is. The interesting point that Fernandez, the defending champion here, he's won in a 500-mile race. And, of course, Kenny Breck won at Indianapolis, the biggest 500-mile race there years. Let's go to Gary.
Well, it's been a relatively trouble-free weekend for Gilles de Ferran, who's trying to clinch the championship, of course, today. But for his teammate, Helio Castroneves, that has not been the case. They blew a motor big time on Friday, had gearbox problems yesterday, had gearbox problems again this morning. If you're de Ferran, you're wondering if he's had those problems and I'm in an identically prepared car for the team, am I going to have problems?
And we give you a final look at the starting grid. And the arrowheads indicated those contenders in the field. Let's go to Jan.
Well, you know, I think one of the interesting things today, of course, pit stops are going to be crucial. Last year they were here 6 times. Remember Team Green? One little miscue with this gun may have cost Dario Franchitti the championship. It's going to be high time tension down here, guys.
Oh, you bet it is, but is it going to be good or what? De Ferran, the pole sitter, track record, blaze this track. They pick up the speed as they come off of 4, the front row. De Ferran and Andretti already taking a look toward the green flag. Green flag is out. De Ferran jumps to the lead, and here we go. Castroneves moves very, very high. He's been there most of the week. Down low, it's Montoya that takes a look at second place to battle with Castroneves. The 2 Newman Haas cars drop back. Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti and go side by side coming off the corner. Castroneves now looks for the lead. Is his job here today to play the rabbit to De Ferran?
I would think so. I mean, the drivers that have been around 500-mile races know you've got to back off right from the start, conserve the car, try to get the fuel mileage. I'm surprised to see the 2 Penske teammates already fighting for the lead.
Yeah, why would you fight at all if you're De Ferran? Nevertheless, he is, as De Ferran goes back for the lead at the 500. Montoya faded, and as a result, Michael's able to come up into 3rd place, but here comes Castroneves again. Two Penske cars continue to battle. Here comes Michael closing in, and as we give you our rundown throughout the race in the upper left-hand corner, you'll notice a highlight of yellow between those, behind those, that are contenders in this event. And De Ferran, as we watch, goes back to the lead.
I'm a little surprised to see De Ferran on the point so early, battling side by side with his teammate. And of course, Michael Andretti just can't be denied. He has to run at the front. I would think drivers like Vasser, Breck, even farther back Fernandez, they don't want to lose contact with the lead group, but as long as they don't go a lap down, they're in a position to go up into top gear, be easy on the gearbox, easy on the engine, breathe the throttle, try to extend their mileage, and not get tangled up in any silliness trying to fight for the lead.
As we've suggested, De Ferran has the easiest job of the day of all the contenders. It's a 1st or 2nd finish to guarantee it as an absolute. But there are some other possibilities, of course, depending on who else falls out and wins. But who else falls out and falls by the wayside, I would think that De Ferran wouldn't want to be running up there. We're going to look at the line speeds here as De Ferran crosses the line again in the lead. Here is Paul Tracy and Kenny Breck, 2 of the contenders. They battle one another, but last time around it was Christian Fittipaldi that turned the quickest lap, and Christian sitting back in 5th place.
Well, the draft is everything here with the Hanford device. No matter how big a lead you have, if you go down a gear, pull some more revs, it's very easy to pick up the toe and increase your average lap speed by a number of miles per hour. You can see the cars moving around. They're a little unstable, especially on cold tires and full tanks. But I'm just surprised, Paul, that these guys are driving as hard as they are so early in this 500-mile.
Well, Adrian Fernandez started in 14th, but Rick de Bruyne, he's dropped back to 16th.
He's actually doing exactly what he wanted. He's not fighting for anything right now. In fact, what DeFerrin's doing is playing into Ferrin's hand. Their plan all along, fuel strategy. Get back in behind somebody, tuck back, get as good a fuel mileage as you can. If you're running up front, you get maybe 2 miles to the gallon. If you're in somebody's tow, you're going to get about 2.2 or 2.4 miles to the gallon. You can get a little bit closer to his teammate, Roberto Moreno, right ahead of him. You can get a little more tow, and this becomes the strategy he wants to play, similar to the strategy he used to win here last year.
Well, Kenny Breck and Paul Tracy continue to go side by side for 8th place, while DeFerrin now seems to have grasped the lead a little bit. 3/10 of a second is a little bit, and there is what 3/10 visually looks like. So in a surprise move, the Penske cars early on battle with one another. Castroneves and DeFerrin swapping positions back and forth. Castroneves has it right now. Just took it at the line away from DeFerrin, but Michael Andretti is inching his way forward.
You know, as we watch this Penske team with Michael in chase, it makes me wonder, Rick Mears, someone that we all idolized growing up as drivers, the master of the super speedways, always said, look, you just have to get through the first 400 miles, get the car right so that you can sprint the last 100 miles, particularly the last 50 miles. You would think Rick would be the first person on the radio going, guys, you need to back off a little bit here. There's no reason we have to lead every lap of this. We've got to make sure the cars get to the finish. As you said, all DeFerrin has to do is know where Adrian Fernandez is and just finish just in front, just behind. He's got the championship sewn up and that $1 million prize that goes with it.
The Penske leaders, Castroneves and DeFerrin, ran the last lap at 224, but Andretti and Montoya, 3rd and 4th, turned the lap at nearly 228 miles an hour, and it's now beginning to pay off for Michael as he comes down to the inside, nicks DeFerrin away, and now looks for taking the lead.
Well, of the top 4, I would think that Montoya's view of this is a little different. It's his last race in a champ car. This is as fast as Montoya will ever go in his career in a race unless they strap a J-Do rocket on the back of a Formula 1 car. So for him, it's all or nothing. He doesn't care about anything but winning. He's not going to conserve unless it plays into the overall strategy for fuel and pit stops. But now, we can see we've got a green car. It's Dario Franchitti easing up into this battle.
Franchitti begins to make his presence known at the front as he comes out at least alongside, if not around, Montoya. Finally, he grabs the position away from Montoya. Michael Andretti, who was battling for the front, has dropped back once again, leaving the Penske cars, the DeFerrin and Castroneves, to lead the race again. But now, Franchitti seems to be the man that wants to go up and race. An important race for him in a season that thus far has been particularly disappointing.
And who would have ever believed at the start of the year that Dario Franchitti wouldn't have won a race or multiple races and be in contention for the championship? He did very well at Michigan earlier in the year, which is what we have to look at when we're comparing ovals to ovals. But here we've got Dario trying to look for that first win, and maybe he'll come away with that $1 million first prize for winning the race.
Still back at 8th place, working on one another, is Paul Tracy and Kenny Breck. Right now, it's Breck that, for the most part, is working on Paul Tracy, and the Penske cars have pulled out about a 2/10 lead on the rest of the run, with Dario Franchitti making a very, very good move in the early on and comes up to 3rd place. One of the contenders chasing the championship is, of course, our leader, Gil DeFerrin. Back at California Speedway, the 500, the final race in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. There are your current standings. Gil DeFerrin still the leader, followed by his teammate, Helio Castroneves. Dario Franchitti with a good move got up into 3rd place ahead of Andretti and Montoya. We look down here from the Honda Helicam as they round this 2-mile oval at some incredible speeds. Last couple laps at 232 miles an hour for the leaders. While we were away, only one change in position as Paul Tracy, battling with Kenny Breck, you see him back there, was finally able to get around Jimmy Vasser and now works his way a little further forward, looking for Christian Fittipaldi. Kenny Breck has yet to get around Vasser. So that battle for the moment is broken off. Tracy is up to 7th.
As we keep track of this championship battle, I've been watching Fernandez. He's now fallen about 12 seconds back of DeFerrin. He's got to be very careful here not to lose too much ground, because he certainly doesn't want to put his championship hopes in jeopardy if he goes a lap down.
250 laps of scheduled distance, 19 of them already into the record book. Green from the word go. Nice smooth start. And the Penske cars continue to just blister this track. Jan Beekes?
Well, you know, you guys are talking about speed. You're saying 232 miles an hour as the fastest lap. Remember, last year, the fastest lap of the race was only 230. And that was near the end. I think it's because we have absolutely ideal conditions today for fast speeds. And if they're running 232 now, I'd say add another 5 to that when they really want to get with it.
Yeah, they're averaging 228.6 miles an hour. And because of that speed, now the leaders are beginning to encounter some of the slower cars in the field. The first one that they encountered with Senji Nakano, and now Alex Barron gets overhauled by first and second de Ferran and Castroneves, and by Dario Franchitti, Rick DeBrule.
Just want to update the situation. Adrian Fernandez' car has a little bit of a push situation. It's not a crisis at this point in time. The only problem is they need to make sure they don't get a lap down. They don't want the leaders to come back and catch them around. They hopefully on the next pit stop they come in, make a little adjustment, and move them back up. Once again, not a crisis until the leader catches you.
Adrian Fernandez back at 17th, driving for Pat Patrick, one of the contenders. Of course, you got Pat Patrick and Jim McGee, Ed Nathman, that whole crew there tracking that car. They'll get it back where they need it by the end of the 500 miles. Look at this little fight, though, as they all come up trying to get around Alex Barron. And Franchitti is the first to have to try and do all that. He gets down back at the front once again. They fight. Castroneves takes it back now. Here comes Tracy and Christian Fittipaldi as they split Alex Barron.
It's so easy on the super speedway. You can be running laps of 228, 230. You come up on slow traffic, you have to get out of the throttle if you can't use that momentum to get by. And once you've lost that momentum, it takes a while to come back. Sometimes you have to come completely out of the throttle, get back behind the guy, pick up the toe, and then take another stab at it. You've got to plan the pass exactly right in order to take advantage of your superior speed.
Here's 9th place Jimmy Vasser. You saw Kenny Breck go low as the yellow comes on. And Parker takes a good look to search the track.
Yeah, we can see debris up in turn 4. Actually,
an accident in turn 4, but the accident came after the yellow. And it looks to be Cristiano D'Amata.
And Paul, I thought from Vasser's onboard, we actually saw debris come up and over the car as we saw the yellow come on. I thought I saw something flick across the nose there.
And part of the problem may be that Paul Tracy has damage. Looking like the whole cowling came off the car. Now, is that damage, or did that just rip away?
Well, it looks like it's missing the plenum to me, Paul. The whole top of the intake stack is gone. There's no pop-off valve. We've seen this a number of times with the Hondas in the past. They get a plenum fire, it explodes and blows the whole top of the car off.
Now, twice this year on Penske cars we've seen that. We've not seen it there yet. Cal Wells, who is the owner of PPI and the owner of the car that Cristiano D'Amata drives. And so his season for PPI is over. The indications are that he will go to Newman Haas Racing to replace Michael Andretti next year. So it looks like you called it. You can see part of the cowling laying out there. Plenum engine explosion takes the top off the car and ends Tracy's day. Gary?
That's what the report that we had, Paul. I'm not down there. I'm at the Penske pit, and they are preparing as soon as they open the pits to get stops for both Castroneves and Ferran. But Tracy clearly had a problem as he came by that last time as the yellow came out.
Well, we'll have a chance here to at least take a look at it. And Paul Tracy still rolling. Looking from Cristiano's onboard.
Coming down through turn 3, you can see the debris. He runs over something. You can hear it on the onboard audio. Snaps him right up into the wall. So I have to believe. There you see the plenum explosion off the back of Paul Tracy's car. That was the debris we saw earlier from Jimmy Vasser's onboard. Catches the right side of Cristiano's car. You can see him run over the bits right here. And when you're on the limit, there is absolutely no wiggle room. These guys are on the ragged edge, and that's all it takes. Puts them hard up into the fence.
And Parker, you had one of those plenum explosions once, too.
Oh, yeah. I put one over the fence onto the golf course coming off of turn 2 at Indianapolis once and was deaf for about 24 hours. It's not a pleasant experience.
You said that was about the loudest sound that you ever heard. Paul Tracy had redecorated his helmet green and dollar signs. It's what he was hoping for. but I guess he's going to have to work for another couple of years to get the $2 million that potentially was on the line for Paul Tracy at the end of this weekend.
We just heard he told his team over the radio, thanks guys, you did a great job this year. And that's the true mark of a champion on and off the track. When he knows that his championship is over, the potential for $2 million has disappeared, and Paul Tracy thanks his guys for such a great season.
And since everybody was talking about their picks back at the start of the season, Paul Tracy was certainly mine for a championship. But what this does call to mind for you is in a 500-mile race, as you suggested, Parker. In a 500-mile race, that distance is so long that luck becomes a much larger factor in the whole deal.
And when we talk to our contenders, when we talk to Moreno, when we talk to Breck, Fernandez, Tracy, and Gilles de Ferran at the beginning of the weekend, every one of them said, you know what, this is almost predestined. There's really nothing we can do but run our race, but there's so much that can and go wrong outside of the drivers and even the team's capabilities or control, that you just have to do the best you can and take it as it comes.
Well, the championship now down to 3. As soon as they open the pits during this caution period, we should see most of the field come in. They're all lined up closely behind Rhonda Trammell in the pace car, and they do come in. Castro Neves will lead them down. Gilles de Ferran will be the second one in, and he, of course, is the guy that we're watching as the key to this championship battle. Gary Gerald?
After running at those big numbers at 230 miles per hour plus, drivers have to be oh so careful. Yesterday, we had a total of, in practice, 18 pit speed violations, as now the Penske cars peel off. Castro Neves goes to his box. De Ferran goes to his box. Now Franchitti is arriving at his box. We watch all 3 teams in action. We're keeping the closest eye on De Ferran since the championship was a stake for him. All right, Castro Neves, no problem for Castro Neves. So now De Ferran gets by, and the rest of the field goes by. Problem for Castro Neves.
And Franchitti, I think he's done it. Montoya may have got him. Franchitti is either first or second. What an awesome stop for Team Green.
Well, in the battle of the pit stops, yeah, Montoya did come roaring out there just ahead of Franchitti. And the rest of the field, it looks up and down the line like we had everyone else stop without any major incidents.
Well, I've been watching Pat Patrick Racing. Fernandez did not take on tires. He moved up a number of positions.
And so the Patrick team, so good at the race gamble, and the strategy already begins to play that game as we run to our first caution of the day. In the championship, and he is yet to win a 500-mile race. Paul Tracy, his 16th career win, his second at the Toyota Grand Prix at Long Beach. Paul Tracy has taken the win in the Motorola 220. Paul Tracy has taken the win. And back again live at California Speedway, Paul Tracy finishing this day in a way that he would have preferred not to, a very slow ride in one of the California Speedway pickup trucks. The yellow flag still flies at the starter's stand, a lot of debris and oil to clean up after this incident. It started with Paul Tracy, and look at the back of the rear of the car. Plenum on the top of the engine blows, and it takes all of the cowling with it, and that sets up the accident for Cristiano D'Amata. Jan Beekes.
Well, I'm with Robert Clark. He runs the program for Honda. Robert, what happens? What causes a plenum explosion?
Basically, it's just the ignition of excess fuel that's built up in the plenum. We don't know exactly what's causing the situation, but we know the symptoms or the phenomena that's happening before it happens, where a driver kind of feathers the throttle. He's in and out of the throttle, and it's building up excess fuel in the plenum, and somehow it ignites.
Could this possibly be a problem for Gilles de Ferran or any other Honda runner? Did he have to now caution them to work the throttle differently?
Sure, I mean, it's a possibility for all our cars are set up the same, so yes, it's a possibility. Our engineers are taking a look at it right now to see if there's anything that we could do to prevent it from happening with the other drivers.
Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
Well, for Paul Tracy at least, that was a $2 million big bang when the plenum went. In the stops in the pits, look what happened to Castro Neves with that stall. And for Montoya, good stop, he got in. And this is Cristiano D'Amata. Debris takes away his steering, and D'Amata takes the wall. We're still under caution. The NFL on Sunday Night Football. The Raiders, led by wide receiver and former Heisman Trophy winner Tim Brown, face the San Diego Chargers at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. ESPN and ABC, your exclusive home for primetime NFL football. At California Speedway, here is the summary of how they stand at this moment, with Montoya with a good pit stop picking up the lead. And our contenders, you can see, well down in the field. DeFerrin in 4th, Fernandez down in 9th place. And it's still going to be a very tight battle for the championship. For Kenny Breck, you see on the right side of your screen, he's got a problem at the rear of his car.
Looks like the rear air jack did not completely retract on that last pit stop. We've seen this in the past where they drag on the ground. It's not really that dangerous. It just could create a problem, especially when you consider they've got at least 6 more pit stops till the end.
And Christian Fittipaldi, Gary, had a problem on his first round of stops.
Yeah, he lost, I think, 8 positions, Paul, from 6th down to about 14th. He came in and they got an air hose entangled on the front wing. That slowed them down while they got it cleaned out. The rest of the guys that were pitted in this area just went streaming by. But of even greater concern to all of us, the fact that we're now getting moisture. It's definitely a very light mist here on the front straightaway, and that's a concern to everybody because there is a big front, they say, that's moving in, and if it gets on top of us here, we may have this thing delayed.
So light mist, not a good sign because the weather in Southern California is predicted to be pretty heavy rain, at least for the LA basin. We're out in the Inland Empire, and it's moving our way. Rick?
Well, even though we're getting wet down here, let's talk race strategy for a moment. Standing by with Bob Sproul, the team coordinator for Adrian Fernandez. Let's talk about the fact that Adrian did not put on tires. Why?
Well, we're only halfway through his stint. The tires seemed all right. They're also warm. It's very cold out, so having warm tires will help. It also made our pit stop quicker. We gained a number of positions to move from 17th to 9th. We're into the points now where we weren't before. It just gave us better track position.
All right, now let's talk about strategy. You guys have always been the master of the 500-mile strategy, but now you got a possibility of rain. How does that enter into how you run this race?
Well, we just have to do what we've been doing, get as far up as we can go, and just be as close to the front when it stops.
All right, Bob Sproul, team coordinator for Adrian Fernandez.
Well, of course, a legal race, an absolute finish race, doesn't come until just past the halfway point. That'd be 125 laps here. We're on the 33rd lap. Juan Montoya is leading it, and he's leading his 26th race in 40 Champ Car starts. He's still very, very remarkable. We'll be back. Into race control, Wally Dallenbach, who was the chief steward for years in kart, on the far left, and then just off to the right there with the glasses is Kirk Russell, who is the chief steward this year, and he has just called for the red flag. Now, it's interesting, Jan Bikas, it is interesting to me because just about the time they were reaching for the flag, you said that it stopped.
Yeah, and that is curious to me because normally I would think you don't red flag it until the track gets shiny. In other words, when you actually have moisture that is more than just a spit like we have right now. And so, like you said, the second that Jim Swintel reached for that red flag, it stopped down here on pit road. Maybe they should have waited a lap or two.
So they aren't going to stop this entire field, but I think in all fairness to race control, where Jan is on pit road right now, it is very, very clear and looks pretty good. But you can tell just by this shot alone that it's a little bit obscured, and just off to the west side of the track, there it is as you look over toward Ontario and Upland, California, and look at the whole mountain range in Mount Baldy. It's just coming closer and closer, and it looks to me, Parker, too, like it's right down ground level. If it's not going to be rain, it might be fog.
Well, but they had a number of drivers complaining on the radio that the race should be stopped. Obviously, the chief steward takes that into account. We've got to use a little bit of forethought here, though, because if this clears up, you could go right back to green in just a few laps, because once they bring these cars in, as you know, it takes a long time to get this thing restarted.
And I'm thinking, too, on a race like this, $2 million on the line, between $1 million for the race and $1 million for the championship, and the political powers that are battling in the championship, it's going to be an interesting time here with the downtime as well, as all the cars come in and the umbrellas come out. Let's go back to what started the caution period, though. It was continued with the rain, and take a look at Cristiano D'Amata's part of the incident after Paul Tracy had the plenum go.
Well, as he comes into turn 3, watch the right front suspension, in particular the steering arm. Paul Tracy has the plenum let go. You see one piece of debris, a second piece of debris, the third piece comes by. Now watch the right front right there. Take out the steering rod in. Now watch the right front wheel. Cristiano at this point is simply a passenger. I'd have my hands off the steering wheel, and there he does it. A little bit of experience here from Cristiano D'Amata before he makes heavy contact with the outside wall.
Roger Penske is right in the middle of it as he comes to the nose of Gil de Ferran's car, his potential champion at the end of the day, with the field all responding to the red flag. He was battling with Oriol Servia, and that little push by Servia cost him a $20,000 fine and 4 points, but it cost Paul Tracy perhaps even more dearly. And then today, Paul Tracy, the plenum blows on the top of the engine and takes him out. So, Jan Vikas, what's Paul Tracy saying about it?
Well, let's find out. Paul, I know that there have been a few Hondas that have had plenum explosions, but this is the first for you?
Yeah, it's first for me in my career, but, you know, it's a disappointing day for everybody at Team Cool Green, but all in all, we're happy with the job that Honda's done for me. I mean, Honda's been great for me in my career, and you know, today's not our day. This year is not our championship, so you know, next year we're still building momentum, and we're going to come back even stronger.
Now, you are allowed to work on the cars during the red flag, but it's not a case of bolting a plenum on. There's some serious damage.
Well, I don't know what all the damage entails. I mean, the whole top of the engine's gone, but you know, we're 7, 8 laps down now, and effectively out of it. You know, if we run later today or tomorrow, maybe we'll go out and run some laps. I don't know, but you know, I got to thank all my guys. They've done a great job all year, and we're going to come back strong this year.
I know it was early in the race, but did you size anybody up? Any idea who you think is going to take home this championship today?
I don't know. I mean, it was so early in the race. Everybody was just kind of cruising. We were running laps 228, 230, but just cruising along, getting good mileage. And it's so hard to tell who's going to be strong at the end of 500 miles. It's just, you know, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Okay, Paul, have a great offseason.
Thank you.
And with regard to doing any heavy work on the car, once that car goes behind the wall, the cart's just reconfirmed, and then it is, in fact, done for the day. Roger Penske, well, he's got de Ferran where he needs him if he's going to pull off this championship, but with misting rain on the west end of the course, it looks like it's going to be a long and difficult day.
It will depend on the weather, but at this point we have to plan in 2 programs right now.
Plan B before we get to C, D, E, and F, huh?
Exactly, but it's looking good, and you know, I think I have a good car. You know, you always have to tune the cars. You never know what's going to be the start, but we're looking good.
All right, Adrian Fernandez ready to go back out.
Adrian, don't even talk about another day. 33 laps complete. It's worked a little bit for Adrian to his advantage. It's working to Kenny Breck's advantage, too. He stays in the car, but the crew is working on that jack at the back of the car so that it will retract properly. 33 laps actually in the record book. Kenny Breck, of course, he knows how to win a 500-mile race, and it's what's going to be necessary to him in order to win a championship. It's coverage of the NHRA Matco Tools Super Nationals from Houston Raceway Park. Defending champion of Top Fuel is Larry Dixon, but here's the real key. John Force in Funny Car can win a 10th championship. Don't forget our coverage. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Our second Toyota Spotlight focuses on Juan Montoya, and a man who's trying to put 500-mile victories, 3 of them in a row. Of course, it starts with Indianapolis, the IRL Series, and then goes to Michigan with his great finish at the line against Michael Andretti. And lastly would be, he leads here under the caution, under the red. Can he go on to a win here today? Jan?
Well, we will find out. Juan, certainly a great first pit stop, puts you out in the lead. Now, your thoughts on this rain delay?
It's a bit of a mess, but those are the races. I think it's pretty good. The car is working quite well. We're just trying to hang in there in the top 5 or 6 for most of the race, and then try to do something at the end.
Now, how much at this stage of the race were you holding back? I mean, how much is left for later?
There's left a bit. The car had a lot of push in it, but races like this, it's better to start with a lot of push and just fine-tune it.
I guess the good news is next year in F1 you don't worry about when it rains, only when you're here on the ovals. But doing your last race, what are you really taking here from this series? What's the most enjoyable part of kart for you?
I think the ovals are a lot of fun. It's very close racing, and it's pretty high speeds. You don't get that in Europe, but it'd be interesting.
Thank you, Juan.
All right.
Gary?
Let's check in with Michael Andretti. Dan Mario stands alongside, and the crew here has been working on the car. Tell me how it was for those first 33 laps, because you've been so strong in other super speedway and oval races this year.
Well, this was a blessing in disguise. We had a problem with the engine, and it allowed us to make the fix. So thank God that it did rain for us. Otherwise, we were in trouble because I didn't have all my boost. I was down a couple inches of boost. So
How long had it been that way?
right away, right from the green flag, it kept losing boost every lap. So you know, that's why I was having problems keeping up with those guys. But the car itself felt really good. I think it's capable of running right up front.
We saw all the Ford Cosworth guys down here, and the computers were out. They actually raced and revved the engine back up. Was it an easy fix for them to get you back up to the boost that you want?
Well, we hope so. We're not 100% sure it's fixed, but they're about 90% sure that it was the problem. So, you know, we won't know until we stand on the throttle when we get the green flag. So we're hoping that it's right.
If they could do 90% fix on the weather right now, I'd take those odds. How about you?
Yeah, really. You know, now that we were able to fix it, now it can stop raining.
All right. Paul?
Yeah, you see Mario Andretti in the background there, former Formula One champion, now a little old winemaker, and a number of Formula One people with interest here. David Coulthard here at the track this weekend, taking a look at what kart action on a super speedway is like. Once again, here is the order that when they come out of the red flag, they will line up, with Montoya leading Franchitti, Andretti, and DeFerrin back to the green. The question only becomes, when exactly will we see that? It looks very dry on the track. A little to the west, it looks like it may get very wet very soon. We'll be back. Been started on the pit road at the California Speedway. The drivers and teams are ready. The focus is once again on a 500-mile race and the championship. It's a much prettier day today for all of the teams who are ready to fight for the championship in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. And today, we pick up where we left off. Yesterday, the start was clean. The championship on the line at 500 miles. DeFerrin went for the front. Kenny Brack and Paul Tracy fought while Adrian Fernandez moved up. And then an engine explosion for Tracy brought out the caution, and the rain made it a red flag. Now there are 434 miles to go. Inland Empire of Southern California, ESPN Speed World is proud to present live once again, but this time under brighter skies, the running of the 500, the Kart FedEx Championship Series. The real key here is this is the last, the 20th race of the series, and the championship is on the line. When the weekend started, Roberto Moreno even had a shot at it, but qualifying eliminated him. And then yesterday, with an engine explosion, Paul Tracy fell out. So now there are 3 left, even though Montoya is listed in there as third. He is not, in fact, a factor in the championship. He will be the leader of the race when we go back to the green flag. It's DeFerrin, Fernandez, and Breck that are battling. Gil DeFerrin took the points lead at Laguna Seca, but a first lap crash in Australia prevented him from clinching his first ever kart title and car owner Roger Penske's first title since 1994. DeFerrin is a 2-time winner this season, including on the oval at Nazareth.
Gil DeFerrin and his team were hoping that last night they would be celebrating a multi-million-dollar payday in his first ever kart championship. Of course, that wasn't the case. So for Gil DeFerrin last night, it was a quiet Italian dinner with his Formula One friend David Coulthard and Gil's family. Then it was back to his motor coach here at the track. He was in bed by 8 o'clock last night. The team worked, did some revisions on the fuel mapping for their car in response to what happened to Paul Tracy. They want to ensure the fact that that Honda power plant doesn't encounter a similar fate. So now the focus is back. The man who set an all-time world open-wheel speed record of 241.4 miles per hour is fourth in the lineup as we look ahead to the green flag.
Adrian Fernandez gained 21 points on championship leader Gil DeFerrin at Australia. Fernandez, the '99 California winner, has scored the most points in the second half of this season. Today, he looks to maintain that momentum and claim his first kart championship.
And of course, the red flag of yesterday may well have helped Adrian Fernandez. He started 14th, but then he started to slip back. Then the leaders, who were setting a torrid pace, he might have been in jeopardy of possibly going a lap down. Then we had yellow. He came onto pit road. Great decision by the Patrick team. Don't take tires. That vaulted him all the way up to 9th spot. We went red. That's where he will start today. Adrian Fernandez also has been able to make a few changes to the chassis. He should be able to run quicker. And of course, now they can put on a brand new set of tires. He has a great shot at going for that $2 million.
Rookie Kenny Brack is winless this season. but he needs to win today in order to have a chance at the Cart Crown. He led 18 laps at Michigan before crashing with Christian Fittipaldi. Brett is an experienced 500-mile race winner, winning the '99 Indy 500.
It's not just a case of winning for Kenny Brack today. He also needs to lead the most laps. Yesterday, he was not in the lead at the race. They've made a few minor changes, nothing major overnight, and now they think the car is competitive. Of course, he wants to win the championship, but he has a lot of experience. Think about this, 500 miles that he's raced in, 3 years of oval racing experience. He wants the championship, he wants the money, but he also wants to be the first Swede to win a kart race.
All right, so there are a couple of other things to consider as well. The rain on the track certainly has had an effect. It's much cooler today, and psychologically, things overnight may have changed.
Well, this has been such a strange year. The drivers and teams have had to deal with the snow out at Nazareth, the rain out at Milwaukee, and now once again, rain in Southern California. For some drivers, it seems they can just shrug it off. Like interviewing Juan Montoya yesterday, he didn't really seem to care. But almost all drivers have a routine that they like to get into. They get into the zone, and they want to stay there. Now, we spoke with Roberto Moreno last night. For him, diet is everything, and as long as his diet's on, he has confidence in his performance. But then we saw Tony Kanaan downing a hot dog during the break yesterday. So it really depends, but this has been a blessing in disguise for Michael Andretti. They've been able to repair the boost problem he had yesterday during the race. For Fernandez and Kenny Brack, they weren't happy with their cars. Now they can work with their teams and their teammates and engineers to try to get what they need in order to get to the front to go for the championship.
All right, as we are ready for the continuation of the 500, here is the full field summary. They have released the cars from behind the pace car to come up to a reasonable speed, but they are still under the yellow flag. And the race recap, as we look at it to this point in the action thus far, it of course has Montoya as the leader of the run and an incredible average at 230 miles an hour. That, of course, is the green flag average, and the key there is Paul Tracy is out. Onboard cameras for you, got plenty of them on board with Mauricio Gugelmin. And, of course, Mark Blundell. We always have a camera with Mark. He's driving his last race for Pac West. We hope he can find a ride for next year. And then Jimmy Vassar's got an onboard. He's up in the 5th position right now. His teammate Montoya, of course, is leading the race. Now, with an overnight chance of everybody to talk, Parker, can't be without controversy.
Well, we dove into the rule book because, of course, we thought that you, of course, as the rule book states, you can make whatever repairs you want to in the pit box during the course of the red. But this rule says that if the races were started on another day, a replacement race car and the driver may be allowed at the discretion of the chief steward. But some controversy has come up over this rule. Isn't that right, Jan?
Yeah, it has, Parker, and that's because the initial part of that rule is that you can do the normal work that you would do during a pit stop in your pit box during a red flag. But then CART last night released the cars from the pit boxes to the garage, effectively allowing the teams to do whatever they wanted. We've had some engine changes, gearbox changes. That has some teams hot. What they would have rather have seen the chief steward do is take the cars from the pit boxes and impound them. So no changes could be made other than what was made yesterday afternoon. And there's still a lot of discussion about that up and down pit road.
Now the cars now moving up to speed. These laps are counting, and as they come off of the 4th turn this time, we should see a green flag, and it will be displayed at the beginning of the 40th lap. Here comes Montoya. Franchitti tucked in close behind him. Green flag comes out. The 500 is on once again as Michael Andretti comes screaming down alongside of Franchitti and grabs second place. Michael then goes outside of Montoya, and Michael Andretti picks up the lead of the race.
Yeah, it looked like Michael was shot out of a cannon there. Keep in mind, you mentioned the track conditions are different. All the rubber's been washed off with the rain. The track and air temperature is the highest we've seen all weekend. Doesn't seem to affect Michael Andretti. He has taken off.
Franchitti comes inside of Montoya, goes wheel to wheel with him, and comes into second place. At the same time, a bit further back, several of the different cars have been fighting with one another. It's actually a pretty good fight all the way through the field. As we show you the data box in the upper left-hand corner, those that are highlighted with yellow, they are the ones that are battling for the championship. Not in the fight, but certainly looking for the $1 million is race leader Michael Andretti. Montoya moves in, tries to catch Franchitti. Gary Gerald.
Parker mentioned that Michael had that problem with boost yesterday. He wasn't aware of it, only in the fact that he knew on the straightaways he was down on power. As it turns out, he was down 45 to 50 horsepower. They said they were 99% sure that they had taken care of it with a software change. Maybe that 45 or 50 horsepower is the difference we're seeing on the straightaways when he rocketed into the lead.
Michael Andretti is leading for the 9th time this year. Look at Kenny Breck as he is back alongside of Gilda Ferrin. So this is a battle in that championship. Breck currently 6th. Moves high on to Ferrin. Max Pappas closes in behind. Now logically, Max can help his teammate if he wants to line up with him and help clean up the air, give him a little more speed in the draft. And here comes Pappas working on DeFerrin. This is an entirely different DeFerrin than we saw yesterday. Yesterday, he wanted to be up at the front, running fast, doing everything he can to stay in the lead. Now he seems to be conservative.
Well, I have to believe they had conversations over the night, because I was so surprised, not to see them lead initially, but the fact that he and Castroneves were running so hard side by side on those opening laps. And we've got a motor that's gone off as they came past our position.
Dario Franchitti pulls off the edge of the course. Looks like the motor may be gone there. Tracy had the plenum explosion yesterday. Jan Vikas, this would be another Honda.
Yes, and the answer to the question as to what did they change overnight for Honda, they did not change any engines, but they changed the engine mapping because they were concerned about what happened to Paul Tracy. They said Paul Tracy's engine, there was an engine failure that led to the plenum explosion, but they changed the mapping just in case. Now with Dario Franchitti in trouble, you have to wonder about our championship point leader, Gilles de Ferrin.
Well, and Kenny Breck is on the charge. He's moved up behind Montoya, but at the same time, Montoya's teammate has moved into the lead of the race. Jimmy Vasser is now leading. Franchitti comes into the pits. Look at Breck, the yellow and white car, dances back and forth alongside of Montoya. Now Breck, look at that. Wow, Breck is just hauling.
This is what we were talking about at the opening of the show, is that Kenny was not happy with the way
outside, 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 clear.
Of course, that's the spotters talking to the drivers, telling them who's around them. You heard he had someone on the outside. Once he was clear of that traffic, they said it's clear. That relieves the driver the responsibility and the concentration that's taken away from actually driving, of having to look in the mirrors and know that. The spotter says clear. They know they've got full width of the track to use for the racing line.
Elio Castroneves is on the move as well, from 18th on the restart up to 7th. Remember, he had a terrible pit stop right at the end of the run yesterday.
As I was saying, this is where the rain delay has really helped. Obviously, Michael Andretti, Kenny Breck was not happy with the handling of his car yesterday, and they have got that sorted out. But keep in mind, this is a whole new racetrack today. So it was anybody's best guess, and obviously the guys at Team Rahal have figured it out.
We mentioned Elio, there he is. Kenny Breck has moved up into second behind Jimmy Vasser. And Max Pappas has been working this lower line. He's running in 5th place. Rick DeBrule?
Just want to talk about Kenny Breck. He wasn't happy with the car yesterday, but it wasn't a big problem. They thought it was a minor problem. In fact, they didn't do any work on the car overnight like some of the teams did. They made the minor adjustments after he came in for the pit stop, but they were comfortable. Once he got back out there, it was going to work, and guess what? They're right.
So Kenny Breck, where he needs to be within this championship fight, at the front of the field. Dario Franchitti now out of the car, though not so sure they've totally given up on that car yet. This was Kenny Breck when he made his move.
Catches the draft,
Goodbye.
makes it absolutely perfect.
Oh.
Goes to the outside of Jimmy going into turn 1. With the hamper device, it's very easy to do.
Jan Vikas, Dario Franchitti, is he done?
Yeah, I believe so, Paul. He's just taking his time, taking his helmet off, but the crew has given him the sign that they're done for this day.
And so with that retirement, Team Green's day is done. Of course, course, now they look to the future, and Michael Andretti joining that team next year. Andretti has fallen back to 5th place after that rather spectacular start. The leader is still Kenny Breck, who now seems to be dominating in that position. It's the 7th race that Breck has led this year. 6 of those have been on ovals. So there's the lineup: Ford, Toyota, and then 2 Fords, as Kenny Breck continues to search for the possibility of his championship as a rookie. He is ahead now, just ahead of Helio Castroneves, who is flying, followed by Jimmy Vasser. One of the other contenders within the championship, Adrian Fernandez, was back running in 9th place behind Gilles de Ferran, and then he made a pretty good run on Fernandez. There's Fernandez. That's Gilles de Ferran just ahead of him. Almost made it look easy. I think de Ferran is on an entirely different game plan from yesterday.
I was just going to say that, Paul. I don't think we're seeing any problems with de Ferran's car. I think he sat and thought about what went on yesterday, how hard he and his teammate Castroneves were running at the beginning of yesterday's race. And I think Gilles said, wait a second, I've got to get this thing to the end. You know, that old racing adage, to finish first, first you must finish. But I think he knows he's got a great car underneath him. As long as he maintains contact with this lead group, which he is, there's not a problem there. The draft is so strong. As soon as he wants to extend himself and his equipment, he can get right back at the front. But for now, I think, after yesterday's race, he's decided just to lay back a little bit.
Jan Vikas is hanging on to Dario Franchitti. We want to watch the lead for just a second, though, if we can hold you, Jan, because Helio Castroneves is working on Kenny Breck. Whoa! Big swing across. Breck maintains the lead, but Castroneves is tucked right in there behind. One of the critical things, and why you may see Kenny Breck battling so hard, is that among the criteria for him to take a championship, he also has to lead the most laps. So he doesn't want Castroneves out here doing exactly what he just did. Now, Jan Vikas, if we can come to you.
Yeah, I think we can. Dario, was it engine related? Yeah, it was an engine problem. You know, the car was fine. We were just sitting behind whoever was leading, and I was just sitting there and cruising along. I didn't particularly want to lead the race. I wanted to get good fuel mileage sitting behind someone, and the engine just started to go off. Kind of sums up the season, really. Do you think this is related at all to what happened to Paul yesterday? I really don't know with that one. I'm sure the guys here will look at it and tell us what happened. I know you only ran a few laps. What about the track conditions with the rain overnight? Track feels pretty similar. My car, again, felt great this morning, which is even more frustrating. I felt we had the car to win the race. All right, tough end of the season. Thanks, Dario. Thanks, man.
Boy, Breck and Castroneves going back and forth at one another. On one hand, you know that Castroneves would like to win this race. On the other hand, too, you could, I would think, be looking at strategy out of Penske in that they want Castroneves out there as a rabbit to try and pull Breck along and get him out of the equation on the laps led.
Well, certainly, and that works well for Castroneves. He has a different strategy than his teammate. He wants to win this race, take the $1 million. De Ferran, obviously, is just focused on the championship. Kenny Breck, though, has to get by Castroneves to lead the most laps to get that valuable point if he wants to take the championship.
Rick DeBrule.
Just want to give you some information on Kenny Breck. He's actually flying blind out there. The dash isn't working. He's not getting information on the dash. The very beginning of the race, they were trying to fix it. Finally, he said, guys, just talk me through this. So right now, he's getting the information from the pit to keep him updated.
From a driver's perspective, that's a little unnerving when the telemetry goes down, when the dash goes down, but on a super speedway, it's probably the best place for it to happen. You know that you're only going to use one of the 2 top gears. You know that you have to go up into 6. The only problem is fuel, but as long as they've got radio communication, the pits can keep them updated at all times. And actually, in some ways, it's a blessing in disguise because then you're not distracted by any of the shift lights or any of the instrumentation.
Kenny Breck takes the lead back, and then Castroneves takes it back again. Battle continues to seesaw at the front. We're going to give somebody in the broadcast booth the unenviable task of trying to figure out what the lead changes away from the line are. Officially, they only counted the start-finish line, but remember at Michigan, we had over 160 lead changes around the track. And Castroneves again.
But significantly, as they crossed the start-finish stripe, Breck was in the lead, even though Castroneves came back. That's all Kenny cares about. If he can keep slingshotting, coming down into 3 and holding the lead, and he does it once again, that's all he cares about. It's helping his fuel economy. It's letting his engine breathe a little bit. Castroneves is actually helping Kenny Breck at this point. Now, at the front, Kenny Breck's probably getting around 2+ miles per gallon. There, he's led another lap, which is exactly what he cares about. He'll let Castroneves go.
We got 2 Red Warriors coming in there. Vassar and Montoya closing.
Well, what it's going to tell you is if you go 2-3 cars back, all of a sudden the mileage jumps 10% or more. These guys are back at 2.2, 2.3. It makes a huge difference when you start looking down the road in 400 miles as far as number of pit stops. Remember, Patrick Fernandez, that's the way they won last year, is being able to extend their fuel mileage. Everybody else had to do a full stop or splash and go. Fernandez made it to the end without that last additional stop.
Continuing to track and check on the contenders while this battle goes on at the front. Adrian Fernandez, Rick DeBrule right now is in 10th.
You know, he's using a different strategy than he was using yesterday. The strategy going into yesterday's race was pretty much to lay back, to sit back, get as good a fuel mileage as possible. And the way he's won other races, the way he won this race last year, come from behind, win at the end, because that can matter for him. He doesn't have to lead the most laps. Today they said they're concerned about rain. His job this time is to work his way up through the front and get up there as quickly as possible. Not moving as fast as Kenny Breck, but he is moving.
And Jan Bikus, what about Penske?
Well, I've been thinking about that, Paul, because it's obvious that they changed their strategy as well. I think what they were trying to do yesterday is they knew that Adrian Fernandez was not running that well, and he started 14th. So they both went out like a rocket to try and see if they could get their main competitor down a lap. Now they know that Adrian Fernandez has made changes. He's running well, so they held back Gilles de Ferran, just like Parker was saying, and then they send Helio Castroneves up to the front to see if they could keep Kenny Breck from leading all those laps.
Well, they succeeded on that lap. Looks like Kenny Breck came across the line just inches behind Helio Castroneves. Jimmy Vassar is behind Breck, and Michael Andretti is up to 4th and back into this fight. Breck now 14 laps in the lead of the race. Gary Gerald, you've been watching Gilles de Ferran.
Absolutely, and we had a conversation with Roger Penske and also with Tim Cindric prior to the restart of the competition, and that was exactly the case. They were going to take a very conservative stance, particularly with de Ferran. We mentioned they made those mapping changes for the Honda power plant. They said we didn't touch anything else that relates to the setup of the car. They just want to get out there and ride, get the miles, stay in position, be there when the time comes to cash in the championship and the big payday.
Well, but Kenny Breck just did it again. He just got the nose inches ahead of Helio Castroneves as they hit the stripe. And so he put another lap into the record book as the leader of the race. And Parker, you think that we're pretty close to the first round of stops?
Yeah, we're looking at 5, 6, maybe 7 laps, and the leaders will be in, Paul.
So the 500 is underway, running, sunshine overhead. Great battle at the front, great battle down through the rest of the field, and the championship far from decided.
Castroneves, he's been the rabbit. He gets out of here in 11.9 seconds. Everything appeared to be routine. Gilles de Ferran, with that conservative stance, is not expected for another 5 laps.
Gary, please tell me that that was a piece of marker tape.
It was, in fact, Paul. That was the first thing I looked because I flinched and ducked. I was at the back of the car and didn't know what was coming in our direction.
Yeah, the teams use some tape on the ground to actually mark positions of wheels and refuelers, and that's what you saw kicked up when he pulled out. It was a little scary for a moment there. Michael Andretti has gotten back into the lead battle of this race. Jimmy Vassar appears to be out, Jan.
Yeah, the report from the team is he has had gearbox failure, Paul.
Well, and there is one of the other big questions, the gearboxes.
Well, we've seen the Renards have been fragile all year long. The Lolas have fared a little better, so I'm a little surprised that, especially considering here that most of these guys, we talked about the fuel economy of the guys not leading, the plus or minus 10%. They're up in 6th gear for the Renards, 7th for the Lolas, and they're cruising along. Shouldn't be a lot of shifting involved here.
Now Kenny Breck has some help that he needs. His teammate Max Pappas has moved into 2nd place ahead of Michael Andretti. So Max can now help protect him just a bit. There's Tony Kanaan on his stop. Kanaan not a factor up at the front of the field. In the lap battle, Kenny Breck is still leading in the most laps. He has 19 in the lead. Castroneves has 16. And Breck turns off. Breck's ready for his first stop. This comes on the 75th lap. Most of the rest of the field thinks this is probably a good time as well. Rick DePruel.
Standing by, we hear him on the radio as he's coming in before the pit stop. The crew was asking, what about a push? Do you have a push? He said, no, the car's feeling just great. Obviously, it's running fine. The question is, will it run the same on the next set of tires? We look around, they do a quick change on the left front wing, and they get him back out. That's 2 seconds.
Gary Gerald.
Gilles de Ferran rips off a tear-off. There's a turn, a half turn on front wing going in. Breck rolls by. Here come two more contenders. De Ferran's rolling in 12-1. Adrian Fernandez, they're side by side at 50 miles an hour. Jan, as they come by you.
Yeah, they were neck and neck as they came by here, Gary, because I'm waiting for Michael Andretti for his service. We heard on the radio he might have a little bit of trouble with understeer, so we'll keep an eye open to see if they make a front wing change for Michael. Tires pretty routine so far. So wait to see the fuel in the vent hose. 11.1 on my watch. Nice stop for Michael.
11.3 official watch. Michael Andretti comes back. So does Pappas, Christian Fittipaldi, Oriol Servia. They all complete their service. And here's the guy that's the leader of the race, Montoya.
He's looking to win his third 500-mile race of the year. Remember that great duel that he had with Michael Andretti at Michigan? Of course, he won the Indianapolis 500. This would make it 3 for Juan Montoya in his farewell race to Champ Car Racing as he goes over to Formula One.
Montoya picks up the lead, but of course the top of the order has not yet seen the pits. Montoya followed by Carpentier. They'll see if Montoya is going to head down for pit road as he comes off of this lap. That would be logical and likely.
You're clear all the way down, Juan.
And exactly what he's going to do.
And he and his Toyota engine have been getting phenomenal mileage all year long. He's done it once again while leading this race.
So here comes Montoya looking to make it 3 500-mile races in a row this year, Gary.
Paul, as we await him, it seems like these cars are just crawling when they come down to that 50-mile-per-hour limit on speed road. You can imagine what it must feel like coming from 230 miles an hour down to this speed, then coming all the way down to the end of the pit. Sliding into his spot a little bit there as Montoya didn't really hit it cleanly, but he is on the proper spot.
Oh, and we saw
on the front straightaway.
Something go behind you, you bet, Gary.
That was Mimo Gidley, I think.
Gidley slows, pulls it down off the line over in the first turn, and they go to yellow. They also put the course condition flag out for possible oil on the front straight, and the pits are now closed, but that really shouldn't matter for anyone.
Well, you want to see the mosquito abatement squad at work. Watch this. Huge blow up. Little oil fire at the back. Mimo very, very quickly gets it down off the racing line into the pit out area.
And one of the things that makes this particularly sad is the fact that Mimo Gidley probably will once again, really excellent driver, be looking for a ride, because it appears that John Della Pena and his team will not be back in this competition next year, though I think they're still hoping for something, but they seem fairly pessimistic. Jimmy Vasser out of the race. He's looking for a ride for next year too, Gary.
Well, here's a man who knows what it's like to win one of these big $1 million paydays, both as a champion and as a winner of this race in the past. What kind of problems did you encounter? Any warning at all, Jimmy?
Just going in turn 3, just went, I lost all drive, and I had no gears. The engine was still running fine. It was just some sort of final drive or gearbox thing. It's a shame. I mean, I could have led easily. I was leading easily, pulling away, and then, you know, it's a game plan, though, to try to run in the back a little bit and catch a much better fuel mileage with the draft. And but the car was good. I could go high, low, and just a matter of playing around with the car, getting in different positions to see where you wanted to be at the end, and you know, what you could do with the car. So it's just the way it goes, you know.
Jimmy, you end a relationship now with Chip Ganassi after so much success in so many years, but yet there's talk that you might be involved in his NASCAR program. Can you share anything about what you might be driving next season?
Well, to be honest with you, Gary, I just, you know, I got a couple things that I'm working on. One of them is that, you know, I appreciate Chip giving me the offer, and Andy Graves is a good friend of mine, fantastic guy, and the opportunity to work with him would be good. But I'm trying to also drum up an option here in kart, which I don't have.
Would you rather be in the open wheel car?
It's you know, NASCAR's fantastic, and you know, it's a great opportunity, but for some reason I feel like my my career here isn't done. I think if I left kart now, I can never come back, and I still feel like I can win races and championships, and maybe maybe this is where I belong still.
We certainly hope so. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely think it's where Jimmy Vasser belongs. A great champion for kart, and made himself fairly rich driving in the series. So it is Montoya that has the lead of the race. We want to take you back to a moment during this last round of pit stops for Adrian Fernandez. That's the view that Don Lambert had as he was changing the right front on Adrian Fernandez's car. We'll be back right after these messages. The California Speedway as a look down from the Honda Helicam. We are still under the full course caution. And in that round of stops, all of our contenders were either losers or at least they were very conservative. DeFerrin in 8th place, Breck in 9th place, and Adrian Fernandez down there in 13th place after the round of stops. But of course, we're still very, very early. But let's just speculate and take a look at the way that the points would be in terms of the championship for now. DeFerrin, Fernandez, and Kenny Breck, the ones who are in contention in the running of the 500 and therefore the running of the entire championship. We'll be back with more from California Speedway. Well, they've done a fairly complete walk down of the front straightaway of the track looking for any parts that may have come off of Memo Gidley's car. We are under this full course caution because the number 10 Della Pena entry, as we were actually watching one of the pit stops coming down the front straightaway and almost right at the line. Look up there in the background. Big time. Well, Montoya was getting refueled. Got the car stopped in the first turn, but there's quite a bit of oil out there. They put a lot of oil dry down trying to get the track as clean as possible because at race speeds, we were averaging over 201 miles an hour as a race average until we came up to this caution. You don't want anything out there.
Oh, absolutely not. Just these guys are so close to the limit. These cars are so fragile at these speeds. They've got to make sure they've got every piece of debris picked up. Got to make sure that all that oil dries off the track and all the oil's been taken with it.
And Rick DeBrule, we get the impression that the Patrick Racing team is already planning another move in strategy.
You know, it's gotten them wins in these races before. They're hoping they can do it again. Now, the plan is for Fernandez at the end of this yellow to come in and do a quick splash, quick wing adjustment, and get back out onto the track. Now, they're sitting here waiting to see if he's going to come in. They're all ready for him. At this point, now they're saying they've got to wave. They're trying to get him in. The idea is, right here, they think they can give him about 6 gallons of fuel. 6 gallons of fuel may make a difference at the window at the other end.
Rick, it's going to be both of the Patrick cars.
Yeah, both guys are coming in. They're playing the same strategy. You can see Moreno coming in as well. They're also making a front wing adjustment as well. He wasn't completely happy after that last stop. They send him back out. He was at the back end of the lead lap, so it didn't hurt him too much. Gary?
Just a quick update relating to Kenny Breck. Remember, you mentioned the fact earlier on, Rick, he is running without telemetry as we see Moreno going by side with his teammate down toward pit exit. But kart officials came to the Kenny Breck pit, and Breck, I honestly don't know if this is a warning or just an informational deal, but it got the attention of kart officials that Breck squeezed Castroneves up very close to the wall at some point. So a little conversation going off the track in race control and down in the pits relating to that move.
And Fernandez and Moreno coming out of the pits, what was that all about?
Well, I'm surprised. It looked like Adrian's pit speed limiter may have been at 49.9. Well, Moreno's was at 49.8, but Moreno took him right at the exit and slotted Adrian behind him.
I wonder if that's what the team wanted or what they wanted or didn't want. Ready to go green once again. 85 laps complete. Montoya takes him to the green, but Pappas wants the lead. Pappas comes inside of Montoya. Andretti is sitting in third. That's Castroneves back and forth.
You watch Max Pappas, I think of two things. The disappointment when he ran out of fuel at Michigan with inside of the checkered flag, and his first victory this year. Jubilation for Max and the entire Team Rahal crew as he won that opening race at Homestead, but it's been a very disappointing season for Max. He said he'd like to have a perfect win here to bookend his season.
Back behind Montoya, Andretti, Castroneves, and now Tony Kanaan sticks his nose into the fight. Christian Fittipaldi is also there. Rick DeBrule.
Just want to mention, we mentioned the fact that Kenny Breck was having problems with his dash. He's also having bigger telemetry problems now. What they're doing is they're using Max Pappas's telemetry to figure out what to do with Kenny, because they just don't have enough information coming in from his car. That's okay if they're together on the track, but the more they spread apart, that information isn't going to hold.
Tony Kanaan has an engine go. Kanaan has one let go. And looks like it's going to cause some serious trouble. Cars behind him as the oil sprayed out of that engine, and let's see who's involved. Well, there's Oriol Servia. Heavy damage to that car. But he's moving around. Thank goodness it appears that he's okay. Boy, that's no time to have an engine go. And it does, I guess, tell you how tightly some of these engines are wound. Parker, here it is.
Well, we can watch coming through start-finish line. Tony Kanaan right at the head of the picture. When that goes, he puts down a huge spray of oil behind him. And you can see both in avoidance. One car looks like one of the Newman Haas cars, doesn't it? Up to the right side. I'll look at it again here. Tony gets a good draft off Montoya and Castroneves, pulls back up in front. Motor lets go. It looked like Michael Andretti. Haven't been able to confirm that yet, but that's just what it looks like. Whoa. Oh, you can hear the debris from the onboard audio. 240 plus miles an hour on the way in. See one of the Penske cars that has to be DeFerrin going by on the right side of Blundell, and it is Michael Andretti that was involved early.
Michael Andretti was up alongside one of the Penske cars. I only got a glimpse from behind at it, so I don't want to tell you it is. It certainly doesn't appear to have affected either Castroneves or DeFerrin, and I would assume that it was DeFerrin that he was up alongside, but everybody in the field from third back had to figure out some way through the smoke and oil and then debris that was being laid down. Again, Parker.
Okay, watch here. Oops, it's Tony Kanaan right there at the bottom of the screen, right on the white line. He gets a great draft past Montoya and Castroneves, pulls back up high. Michael Andretti now is the trailing car. We can see his teammate Christian Fittipaldi went low, but the problem is Michael was crossing up high, and as he does that, there goes Christian Fittipaldi. Here's Michael Andretti right there, and there's DeFerrin directly behind him. And Michael, now watch this, the championship at hand misses by inches as Michael Andretti slides up into the wall.
Yeah, but what did he miss, and what else may have happened there? Another view.
Kenny Breck and Mark Blundell now side by side. We watched Blundell's onboard camera. We can see Mark going high. Look at the contact with Servia there. Side pod way up into the fence. Huge contact. The front of the car there. And now watch how close that is. DeFerrin standing on the brakes, smoking all four tires. Misses Andretti by, I can't be more than an inch or two, Paul.
And at the 96 car, the kart safety team is working with Oriol Servia. Michael Andretti standing right next to Dr. Terry Trammell. He is obviously okay. But the yellow is out. 90 laps now complete. And there is DeFerrin. The question, Gary Gerald, is how is he?
Well, they were very concerned. They thought, Gilles reported that he may have hit something. They don't know if there's damage to the car. It's still rolling here, but of course nowhere near speed under yellow. We were just advised that they would take the first opportunity to come in, retire, fuel, and look the car over. The crew is now over the wall, and the pits have been opened up. So this time by, we should see DeFerrin in his quest for the championship coming in. Now keep in mind what happened at Michigan in the 500 there when he was contending, and debris from another accident literally fell out of the sky, hit his left hand on the steering wheel, and he ended up with a broken finger. Now, we'll see as he reports shortly if there was in fact damage to the car after this incident.
Well, in fact, Parker, you and I were talking on the way into the track this morning about Paul Tracy's plenum explosion and where debris goes and the velocity it's moving at.
Well, that's the problem, is you don't need very much mass at that velocity to create a huge problem with these cars. They are quite fragile. They're designed to be as light as possible.
We're going to check the car. We've got plenty of time. Let's get this done first. We'll look at everything. Coming in nice and smooth.
That's Penske. He's talking to DeFerrin. So the field comes in. We start with Rick DeBrule.
Well, they're bringing the cars in, going to not only put in fuel, but the plan is also to put on tires. The reason being, we'll watch Kenny Breck as they make the stop. The reason being, the concern is if they pick up any debris. The tires are good, but in this case, they're taking it just as a precaution, just in case. He said he doesn't need any changes. Now down to Gary.
Gilles de Ferran gets the new tires. The fuel is going in. The crew's looking over the suspension. He's rolling. Pappas beats him out. Now behind him comes Kenny Breck and others, and apparently everything looked okay. He wasn't here long. We had him at about 8.5 seconds, but it looks like everything's all right for Gilles.
And Gary, for Montoya, he was in and out at 8.8.
We had a pretty good look at Gilles de Ferran on the racetrack as well as in the pits, and the car, at least at a cursory glance, looks fine. So, another caution, this one involving a fairly large accident after a blown engine on Tony Kanaan brings out the yellow once again. We'll be back. Still under the caution, Patrick Carpentier was also involved in that melee down in the first turn. He got way down on the inside of the track, and they were able to get him around in some way and get him moving. We do have a report now from CART that everybody's okay as a result of this accident, and that's especially good news for Servia, though we certainly thought that.
Once again, Tony Kanaan gets a great draft, goes for the lead, pulls up high. Michael Andretti, that was Christian Fittipaldi, just went through, is in the oil. Watch the Ferran smoke the tires, trying to avoid contact with Michael Andretti. He's up in the wall. Of course, high on the outside, you can see Oriol Servia. We'll look at that from this angle now. Kenny Breck, Mark Blundell. There goes Servia with big contact. Up into the outside at 350 feet a second plus. Very difficult to make these decisions.
I want to put you on board with Mark Blundell and just listen to this. Those are no small hits. Jan Vikas, Tony Kanaan is with you?
Yes, he made his way back to the pit road, and that was a great move towards the front, but as soon as he got there, kablooey, what happened?
Well, you guys saw what happened. I don't think I have to say anything, but, you know, I was doing what I promised to do, which is trying to give Mercedes a very good result here. Unfortunately, that's the way the races are, you know, and it's tough because we had a very good car today, so we're building it up. It's gone. That's fast.
And you knew you were dropping oil, so you tried to get it down low to keep the oil off the track?
Definitely. I mean, I don't want to, you know, screw anybody's race, and I think, you know, well, I try to be as fair as possible and then to run as low as possible and go low as possible as soon as I could. So hopefully I didn't make too much mess for those guys out there.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And the very likable Tony Kanaan going for the lead. And then suddenly he has an engine let go. Here is Mark Blundell. We're going to slow this down substantially so that you can see some of those parts coming right at you.
Watch here. You can see the parts bouncing right into the wing here. And you'll see another piece coming through the front. Keep in mind, these chunks don't have to be very big. These carbon fiber bits act like razor blades when they're coming through the air. Now, mark it downshifted a couple of gears. It slowed down probably to 180, 190 miles an hour. But it doesn't take much to inflict big damage to these cars.
So with Tony Kanaan's engine gone, a major melee, fortunately no one has been injured as a result, but it has taken not only Kanaan, but taken Michael Andretti out of the race, and that's a tremendous loss on this final race of the year. He would be the champion. There it is, simplified. Points as of now for you. Now we're still waiting for the cleanup. In fact, there's a great deal more to do. Oriol Servia was also, of course, actually not the key player, but the key victim of that last accident, and he's now with Rick DeBrule.
Oriol Servia, probably one of the scariest moments of life. You were stuck blind out there. Explain it.
Yeah, it was just, you know, for 10 seconds I couldn't see absolutely nothing. There was a lot of smoke, just hoping that there wasn't a car in front of me because, I couldn't see. Michael was in the same position, and he moved a little bit to the left, and I moved to the right. I moved to the left, and we touched wheels. It's a shame. The car was going great. I started 16. I was, 7, 6. The car felt comfortable. It was a great race, last race of the season. All the guys did a great job the whole year. PPI was great. It was just the last race, and I could feel I could give, I don't know if a win, but a great race, a great result for sure. It's a shame.
But the good news is he's okay.
So for Servia, and in fact for his team PPI and owner Cal Wells, the comes a sad ending to a very long season with both Cristiano D'Amata, their other driver, early on in the race yesterday, out. Now here Oriol Servia is out of the run. The nice news is Mauricio Guzman is right now sitting up there in front. Will be posted shortly here as the leader of the race. So still quite a bit of cleanup to do at the first and second turn. And there's still a lot of oil and a lot of debris. And then once again, they want to make sure that this track is perfectly clean before they go back green. Gary Gerald.
Michael Andretti, his wife Leslie alongside. And Michael, could you see anything at all when you got into the smoke there?
Nah, when he went by, just a big plume of smoke, and it was a whiteout, and I was afraid I was going to get hit from behind, and that's what happened. You know, Oriol couldn't see me and just ran over the back of me.
Is this one of those situations where you're trying to save fuel and you stay back? Could you have been out in front if you wanted to?
Yeah, no problem. I could have led easily, but they wanted me to stay in the back and save fuel, and you take risks when you do that, obviously, and we just found that out.
11 years with the Newman Haas team, and I guess now it officially comes to a conclusion. What are you feeling in terms of emotion relating to that right now?
Just a big disappointment, because I really wanted to finish this with a win, and I think we had a car today to do it, so it was just really disappointing. I mean, it's a sad feeling right now. You know, it's like you're leaving your family, and but you know, we got to look forward, and we're looking forward to next year.
We look forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, new beginning for Michael next year at Team Green, third car there, and Motorola sponsorship for Michael. So we're still under the caution and scanning the track. They look like they're pretty close to having it fully clean. 29th lap is what we're looking at in the 500 as we're ready to go back to green flag action. Green flag comes out, and here we go once again. Alex Barron leads them down. Moreno's actually the leader of the race, and he's going to run in track. You see that? About 5 wide going into 1. Whoa!
Montoya down low. Castroneves up high.
And within this battle, what you've got to keep in mind is Moreno is the leader there, and his teammates sitting a little bit back, but Montoya is in attack mode right now. And they are overcoming some of the slower cars in the field, putting right now Alex Barron a lap down. Rick DeBrule.
Well, the best laid plans of mice and men. The idea was that Roberto Moreno would be the rabbit, that Fernandez would tuck in behind him, and they'd take off. Guess what didn't happen? But I tell you, the Patrick guys are really excited. They feel this is played perfectly in their hands. Remember, they made the stop just before this yellow. As a result, it moved them up in the field right where they want to be.
And Alex Barron's hanging in there pretty good. Nice run for Alex. Remember, he was pretty close to a great finish at Surfers Paradise. I want you to see where they went 5 wide at one point. Oh, yeah, I wanted to be part of that. Okay, I'll give you a 4.
Within government tolerance. The interesting thing has happened here, though, is Montoya has started to drop back. I think now, remember, he went 3 laps farther than the lead group on that first set of green stops. Montoya obviously went right to the front. He's come back a little bit. He's letting Castroneves and Alex Barron and Moreno, I think, now pull him around. And we do have an engine that sounds off.
And that's Mauricio Guzman, who was up there a moment ago and made us feel pretty good about it, because he's one of the nice guys in the series, though for the most part, they all are. The president of the Championship Drivers Association has been working diligently with that this year, and now with that slowdown, it looks like his season has come to an end as well. Moreno, Castroneves, Alex Barron trying desperately to keep back on the lap, with Montoya closing in behind him.
We saw Castroneves up high. He has been able to run higher than any other car all weekend long.
Castroneves takes the lead away from Roberto Moreno. And finally, Montoya is able to get out alongside of Barron while Pappas is closing in. Rick DeBrule.
Down here in Guzman's pit, where they're taking the cowling off, taking a look inside. Guzman not getting out of the car just yet. But, you know, they have that mystery look. They're looking around trying to find the problem. They don't look like this is either going to be A, shortstop, or B, a situation where he's out for good.
Well, absent a lot of oil or a big hole in the engine, change the electronics and give it another shot. Look at the fight at the front now. Boy, it just keeps going. Barron is staying in there. Isn't that nice? Of course, we saw that out of Memo Gidley at the Michigan 500 as well.
We did, but I think they were on different strategies. These guys at the front are trying to go as fast as possible on as little fuel as possible. I think in Alex Barron's case, certainly in Gidley's case at Michigan, they just had it flat to the floor, pulling more revs, using more fuel. I think Montoya is probably the cagiest, most mature driver I've ever seen with that kind of talent at such a young age. I think he's driving this car obviously very hard, but I would say of this lead group, he's getting exceptional fuel mileage, certainly better than anyone else.
Yeah, and look back in there. There's Kenny Breck as he comes up to join this fight. Cross the line at 5th place. Gary Gerald.
Just a quick update to follow up on the possible damage for Gilles de Ferran. When he came into the pits, all the suspension looked good, but Roger Penske did report that they detected slight damage to a vortex generator. That's what directs the air underneath the under tray of the car. Don't know if it's having any impact on his performance. Doesn't appear to be at this time, but apparently that was the only casualty from that earlier incident when he was in the middle of all the debris.
Well, let's go to a guy who knows his aerodynamics backwards and frontwards. I would think since most of the downforce is developed out of the under tray, that vortex generator might be critical.
Well, and certainly on the super speedways with the Hanford device, the front wing is actually producing lift. We get these front shots, these long shots. You can see there are long vertical plates just trailing the front suspension, and as Gary said, it directs air through the under tray of the car. If those are damaged, what it does is it not only upsets the flow underneath that under tray, it can redistribute the center of pressure, which means that the car may not produce as much downforce as it should, or by moving the center of pressure, it can cause the car to go to push or to loose. But they have things that they can change, whether it's tire pressure, stagger, roll bars, or their weight jackers to compensate for that. Because it is cool and overcast, the air is dense, the cars are producing more downforce than anybody had anticipated here. It may not affect his run that much.
And if you followed all that and can pass the test, then you qualify for 3 minutes of credit in Aerodynamics 101. Thank you, Park.
Sorry.
No, it was great.
Man, I'm writing as fast as I can down here. I'm not sure I got all those. Will there be notes available at the end of the session?
There's cliff notes at the end of the race, Gary, no problem.
And my fraternity has files somewhere. Pappas now has the lead of the run. Castroneves is there in second. 110 laps complete. They're working on 111. Remember, too, when you're looking at the data box, if it's got a highlighted yellow behind the car number, that means that they are one of the 3 cars in the championship battle. But I'm pretty sure by now everyone knows it's de Ferran, Fernandez, and Kenny Breck that are battling for a championship. And speaking of Breck, here he comes up to the inside alongside Castroneves.
And you talk championship, Kenny Breck. Outside. Clear.
Yeah, there's something we need to tell you about that too. Because of the eloquence of many of the kart drivers, we do have about a 2.5-second delay on the audio, so don't blame the spotter for being late. He's probably on time. We just got that little delay in there. So in case something unacceptable may have been uttered, hopefully we can get to the button before it gets to you.
When we talk championship, Kenny Breck has got to get to the front. He's got to lead the most laps to pick up that valuable extra point and then go on to win this race. If he wants to take that championship from de Ferran needs some help, or he needs help from his friends to make sure de Ferran is well behind him.
So Kenny Breck plays it very carefully with his teammate, the leader of the race, Pappas, and it cost him a little in momentum. He drops back into 3rd place.
Remember, Kenny Breck's probably just a little gun shy because he was squeezed into the wall coming off of turn 2 at Michigan when he had that contact with Christian Fittipaldi. He wants to make sure that he gives himself a little extra room and make sure. Wow, look at this. It shows you how the Hanford device plays here. You get a run, you pop out, you start to go by. The other guy then picks up a bit of the toe, and he comes right back by you.
Honda Helicam tracking the front 3 in the race. Pappas, Castroneves, and Breck. Breck inches up there and then drops back.
But from what I'm seeing right now, it looks like Pappas has got the stronger car because Castroneves should easily be able to draft up and pass Max. We can see Castroneves, once again, Elio up on the high side. Kenny Breck losing some of that draft. It's 10, 12, 13 car lengths back, just like getting back behind a tractor-trailer rig going down the freeway. And here, finally, Kenny gets hooked up, but he's unable to take that advantage of that draft to make a move past these front 2.
Remember, too, in Kenny Breck's scenario for a championship, he needs to lead the most laps. And this kind of run is costing him dearly. Jan?
Well, you're talking about Castroneves and that high line.
Yellow just came up. Yep, got another engine going, and it's Shinji Nakano this time. And this one involves an awful lot of fire at the back end. You were talking about those JATO boosters. That's what they would look like, only in this case it's slowing the car down. So we'll pull the yellow flag once again and slow the field down. I was going to suggest to you, and Jan, I'll be right back to you. Montoya has actually led the most laps now. Castroneves second. Montoya with 24, Castroneves with 19, and Breck also 19.
Well, here we've had a Honda let go. We've now seen Mercedes, Toyota, and Hondas go. It's Shinji Nakano and Walker Racing's version of the Batmobile.
Well, they call him Jimmy the Rocket.
There you go.
There you are. Jan Beekes.
Yeah, we were talking about the line of Castroneves, and he runs that high line like Parker was talking about. And remember, he was one of the early guys on pit road. And what I wonder, Paul, is you run the high line, it's a longer distance around the racetrack. Maybe he's more comfortable, but I can't see how you can get good fuel economy when you run high and that longer distance all the time.
Jan, you wanted me to calculate the actual lap difference the other day. Keep in mind, they measured from the center of the track, but it really depends where the comfort zone is for the car, as you know. If the car has a bit of a push, you tend to run it down low. If the car is neutral to a little loose, it's a little bit more comfortable, putting a little bit less steering angle and therefore a little bit less loading into the front of the car as you go around. But I think with Castroneves' case, he's found a car. DeFerrin said earlier in the weekend they had the perfect chassis where the car remains with its balance from full to empty tanks, from fresh tires to used tires. And if he can run high, middle, and low, he's got a car that he can race with anybody on the track.
And that gives you 1 minute of credit in rolling resistance versus distance. Thank you once again, Parker.
There'll be notes available. And I do want to say, when we watch the fire at the back of Shinji's car, we laugh. There's some levity there. We only say that because it's not serious. We've seen these oil fires time and time again. They put themselves out. The safety crew from CART was right there, and it's not an endangering factor for the drivers. So we may kid about it. We know it is serious, but in this case, 10 times out of 10, it's not a problem.
Yeah, we were actually looking at that in replay, and Shinji did make it all the way around to his pit where they were waiting for him, and they had plenty of water that they were able to throw on it, as well as some light water, and get that thing shut down. Rick DeBrule? Well, we'll try Jan Beekes.
Well, we're down here at the Ganassi pit. We know that Juan Montoya is coming in. Chip Ganassi himself looking over, waiting for Juan's arrival. But if you tip down and look at the pits on exit here, you'll see that all the competitors that were ahead of Juan Montoya are gone. So he effectively now has the best pit on pit road, no one in front of him when he leaves.
And that's a huge advantage, because one of the problems you have is having to swing out or have the problem with traffic not only coming out but even on the way in. So that's great for Juan Montoya. Obviously wants to win his third 500-miler, leave here with $1 million US as he heads over across the pond to Formula One.
In the pits, the Patrick Racing team is laid out for a stop, and so is the Rahal team. So we're going to see, there they are, everybody on the pit road once again.
Keep in mind, there's no tolerance for being over 50 miles an hour. These guys are at 49.9.
Of the group, Mark Blundell, whose pit is further down, makes it to the pit first. Castroneves we're focusing on. Castroneves was the leader. Pappas is into his pit. It looks like they're going to go fuel only for both of the Rahal cars. They're both away and rolling. Gary Gerald.
They do change tires for Castroneves, and they fuel him. He leaves just over 11 seconds. Oh, close call there as he eluded the trooper Fittipaldi. No problem, however.
And Jill DeFerrin also stopped, rolls right out behind him. So as they slot in under this yellow flag, another round of stops complete. And the top three in the race, well, you saw it. Well, you know, you didn't see DeFerrin, but you saw a couple of them. They only made fuel only in the stop. So they seem satisfied with the handling. They're also playing part of the tactics. Anything else going on today? The gang from RPM tonight are here at California Speedway, and at 6:30, 3:30 Pacific, they'll be on the air to wrap up the motorsports. So the RPM gang was here. They're back. We'll have more, and for more, log on to ESPN.com. All right, we want to show you the points as, again, they stand right now. The battle is now beginning to get very, very serious and close. Those are the points as they sit at this moment. And also, for Kenny Breck, when he was leaving the pits with his teammate and Alex Barron just ahead,
it was a pretty close call coming off the pit line. Look
Watch
at
Max
this.
Pappas. As he comes out, Kenny Breck's gridded in right behind him here out of the pit box. Kenny gets a great launch like a top fuel dragster. You could see they nearly had contact. Max lifts and obviously goes, what the heck was that? It was Kenny. And now Kenny's back in the lead.
Pit boxes at 63 feet are nice and long, but still at these speeds they are fairly short to the drivers. Jan Beekes.
Well, Juan Montoya came in, and he did take 4 tires. He took 4 tires and 1 turn of front wing, filled it up in 8.5 seconds. It was an awesome job by the Ganassi crew.
Well, we always say that on a 500-mile race for the Champ cars, it's going to be critical on the pit stops, and obviously Montoya's crew takes that very seriously. 8.3 do the tires. That's flying. Under the yellow is Kenny Breck in the front of the field. At the 500 and riding under the caution flag with Mark Blundell, and we show you the standings. Mark Blundell up there in 4th place. He's given that car a nice ride in its final drive.
Well, a great ride. He was up to 10th early in the race, had moved straight up from his original starting position. Then he's just gradually worked his way up. I think his car must be handling quite well. And remember, his teammate Mauricio Gugelmin set the original closed course world speed record that was broken this weekend back in '97, but Mark went on to win that race.
And a man who has got more than a lot of change that went out of his pocket this weekend is PPI owner Cal Wells. He's with Gary.
Yeah, it was Cristiano Damata out of the race yesterday, of course. Oriol Servia earlier today with the contact after the blown engine. And Cal, the thing that we want to ask you is, how encouraged are you that you may in fact have your Champ car operation alive next year in this series?
Well, Gary, I'm working mighty hard at it. We'll see what happens, but I remain focused. I'm certainly not giving up. We've got a great partner in Pioneer, another great partner in Mitel, and we're working very closely with them in hopes of keeping ourselves in this series. I love this sport.
How long do you have before you just run out of time in terms of preparation for a new season that seems so far away, but in reality, when you consider all the testing and development that goes into it, is just around the corner?
You know, I'm not too concerned about that right now. I think that our team is very buttoned down, and whatever car we actually end up with, we'll be fine. Obviously, Oriol's a spectacular driver, as he proved again today. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring it home, but I think that if we have something together in the next month, we'll be fine.
Now, one final question. If you're able to run next year, is Oriol going to be your guy, or has he been released to look for other work at this point?
Well, you know, I never had him contracted. He's just been very, very loyal. He was under contract this year, but I don't have an option on him for next year. He likes the team. We love him. We'd love to hang on to him. Right now, I think if we're in it, he'll be the driver.
All right. Thanks, Cal.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, no doubt that Oriol Servia, a valuable asset to that team. His teammate, Cristiano Damata, he came to the track as a spectator today and was able to get up and join all the spotters, get a good view for the race. Now, the reason, we're going to show you actually 2 contacts. Mark Blundell, as he drove through the debris today and yesterday when Damata blew past Paul Tracy's engine explosion.
Well, the big difference between these 2 incidents, one, of course, being fate. Mark Blundell on the left side of the screen running through carbon fiber, as did Cristiano Damata on the right side after Paul Tracy's plenum explosion. The big difference for Cristiano Damata is we believe the pop-off valve, the only thing of mass on top of that engine, is what struck the right front steering link, snapped it, and put Cristiano in the wall.
After 122 laps, the leader is Kenny Breck. Green race average way up there at 227. The average speed of the race, counting in the yellows, 187 miles an hour, but still pretty high. They give them the indication that they will restart next time around, but let's consider Kenny Breck and that desperate move to get out of the pits alongside of his teammate. Remember, leading laps, an absolute must. He's got to lead the most laps in this race to stay in that championship. And these laps under yellow certainly count. Right now, Kenny Breck has 24. The lap leader is Montoya. Well, the lap tie when he crossed the line last time, Montoya also has 24. So when they answer the flag here, once again, Kenny Breck will go into the lead of laps thus far, and that's going to be a key, an absolute factor for him.
Well, there's a lot of chatter about fuel strategy with all this yellow. If they got great mileage, they might be able to make it in 2 stops. Kenny Breck doesn't have a choice. He's got to stay at the front. He's going to get at least 10% worse mileage than those trailing behind him, and that means guaranteed he's at 3 stops unless we've got more yellows or circumstances change.
Pace car comes off the course. pace picks up. Kenny Breck is going to lead the field back. Green flag is out. Back to full speed once again. Max Pappas, Breck's teammate, is there in second place. Not good for Max to necessarily be in front, but also Montoya comes around. Breck drops to third. Blundell closes in. I really wonder if that is rivalry or team strategy there.
Well, I think what happened is that Kenny just gave a great tow to both Max Pappas and Juan Montoya. They slingshotted by and left Kenny for dead coming off the second corner. Mark wasn't able to use that momentum to his advantage, and now everything is sort of stabilized. We can see Cash Nevis once again on the high side. That car working so well up there, but I think Kenny was just taking advantage of it. He's got to feel cheap and dirty at this point.
Well, Scott Remke down at the Ray Hall pits runs that car for Kenny Breck, does the strategy, and I bet the cogs and wheels are spinning in his mind trying to figure out what to do here. Sitting back there is Mark Blundell, currently fifth. Jan Bikas?
Yeah, great run for Mark Blundell, and consider that yesterday he thought his day was done. He was walking down the pit road shaking people's hands as though that was his last time in the car. But because of the overnight red flag, they found a way to fix what they perceived to be an oil leak, and now he gets a second shot at it. And considering he shot through that debris without damage, maybe this will be his lucky day.
Oh, man, the whole thing changes again as Breck comes to the front with Castro Neves coming into second place.
And keep in mind, we've got the powerhouses of engine manufacturers at the front with Ford, Toyota, and Honda. Mark Blundell with Mercedes that has struggled all year long. Here, horsepower is extremely important. In order for Mark to stay at the front, he's got to trim his car out in order to get some of the drag, give away some downforce in order to match top speeds, which means he's hanging on in comparison to everyone else. This is a great run from Mark Blundell.
You know, Mark Blundell, Roberto Moreno, Jill DeFerrin, a whole group of them were at Rose's restaurant last night, carbo loading on the pasta there. But Mark looked particularly relaxed as he was talking with his longtime friend and neighbor in Scottsdale, Arizona, their Harley collection. So they were just nice and easy, and it's paying off here today. Boy, look at it. They split the leader again, and Blundell is in this fight. Again, Breck is a guy that's got a problem trying to get up at the front and lead these laps. Blundell's teammate, Mauricio Guzman, is out of the run, and right now he's with Rick DeBrule as Kenny Breck. Oh, looks like Blundell's got an engine going.
Mark, you're blowing. You get out of it.
He's just going to run it right up next to the wall. And that's the only thing a driver can do. He couldn't cut back down on the track since he's running in his own oil. The best thing you could do.
That is great. I mean, that pass you put on him was awesome.
Just as he goes into the lead, the engine lets him down, but a great bit of driving by Mark Blundell. What a way to end his career here in kart, at least for now.
Now, Parker, as you've said many times, they tend to go real fast just before they stop going whatsoever.
Once again, we saw some heads-up driving. He had just taken the lead on the back straightaway. We can see Kenny Breck drafting down the inside. The engine lets go, and this is every driver's worst nightmare, is to be mid-corner, full throttle, have the engine let go. You can see Mark drove it right up against the wall. The best thing he could do so that if the car started to get away from him, he could just grind the speed down, going parallel with the wall and not take a big hit.
Here's the whole deal as Breck goes to the inside. Blundell splits to the outside of Castro Neves. Blundell goes to the lead. I bet Kenny Breck will never be so thankful that he decided the lower line going into 3 was a little bit better idea.
And you can see Mark hanging on. The car was actually a little bit loose coming off 2. Breck picks up the draft. Blundell staying with him, and then the thing lets go. That's too bad. Very, very nice man. Last one here back in 1997. He's given Motorola Pac West a great run, and he did a great bit of driving there.
In the Ray Hall pits, they've laid out for a possible appearance by Max Pappas. Also, they've laid out for Tagliani. Fernandez is going to head down into the Patrick pits, as is Moreno. So now we're beginning to think about how we get to the end of this race. Rick DeBrule?
Adrian Fernandez coming in. He was complaining earlier that he had a push going into the turns loose out. They corrected it. All they did this time was go ahead and put on some fuel, send him back out. No big adjustments.
Pappas, Fernandez, fuel only on the stops. Yellow out once again, but now saw the whole game on the fuel strategy being played, looking toward the end of the race, and maybe it's just 2 stops now for everyone. Farron, of course, looking for his first championship as well, but it seems to have turned into a struggle. The points as of right now, where they sit, Farron still leads them, but I wouldn't want to have anybody that close to me in a championship fight this close to the end of a 500-mile race. What Kenny Breck needs? Well, we've mentioned leading the most laps. And Breck needs a little bit of help from Gil de Ferran. De Ferran needs to lose 8 positions in order for Kenny Breck to find himself as the champion. Let's go pit side once again. Rick?
Standing by with Mauricio Gugelmin, who was just complaining that his teammate Mark Blundell went out with much more savoir-faire and style than you did. But let's talk about what happened. What put you out of the race?
Well, basically, I had a mechanical problem. We started losing power, and we had to park the car before it blew up. What happened with Tony, and then Mark just had the same thing. He was in a good run and just went out of the race with the same problem.
Has the track changed at all today?
The track has been great, remarkably great, very consistent, and the cars are handling very similar. The only difference you see there is on horsepower right now.
All right, Mauricio Gugelmin out.
Well, with Kenny Breck in front, Montoya in second, Castroneves third, Fittipaldi fourth, and Gil de Ferran fifth. That's the way they will come back to the green flag as we anticipate that now. Green flag is out. Kenny Breck gets great momentum coming back to the green. Montoya in pursuit. What Breck may have gained in momentum off of 4, he's losing now, and once again, up high, Castroneves uses the high line, goes to second.
Now he's got the draft coming down the back straightaway, but he holds off on the entry of turn 3. I'm kind of amazed. I think he actually feathered out of the throttle there, but now Castroneves looking to the high side, keeping clean air on that car. Montoya goes with him. Castroneves trying to decide whether he's going low or high. You don't want to move your hands quickly at these speeds. The cars run a very slow steering rack here, 7-to-1 in comparison to what they do on road or street courses, so that if the driver makes a quick movement, the car doesn't react fast. But
Castroneves off of turn 2. Drag race on the backside. Castroneves takes it going into 3. Breck's going to come back at him. Breck works it low, side by side into 4.
It's the voices in my head, Paul. They tell me to go to the front. I have no choice.
All he needs is to be at the front of the line. He's done that now. And again, Castroneves, but Breck seems aware of that move now. Tends to go into 1 a little bit higher.
We can see Christian Fittipaldi all the way down the inside of Montoya on the way down into 1. Pulls back, coming down on the back straightaway. You got to remember now, with some of these guys stopping on this last go-around, particularly the Patrick guys, I think they can make it in 2 more stops to the end.
Christian Fittipaldi is in this fight now, down alongside of Montoya, grabs 3rd place. Another factor, too, to keep in your mind is attrition. Attrition has been fairly high. We have only 14 cars actually in the race now with the retirement of Blundell, and if 2 more go and de Ferran stays in, this baby is his.
Exactly right. We've seen each engine manufacturer problem have an engine problem. Mercedes is down to 1 last runner, and that's Michel Jourdain Jr. Everyone seemed to be susceptible. It's very hard on these engines running well over 15,000 RPM. The driver's full throttle most of the time. As I was saying, for the Pat Patrick guys, they aren't full throttle. They're coming off the throttle. They're up in top gear, breathing the engines. They've got to get 2.55 miles per gallon to do it in 2 stops. That's a big number, but not impossible.
Christian Fittipaldi takes the lead going into 1. So Fittipaldi is there now. Breck and Castroneves battle. Well, if those 2 cars would go, that would end Breck's day. It would not end Fernandez's opportunity. He'd still have a reach. Rick de Bruyne.
Parker was just speculating about the Fernandez pit strategy. He is right. They are down to 2 pit stops. That's all they need for the rest of the race, which is exactly where they want to be. The situation with Breck, he needs to stay at the front. He couldn't afford to come in because he needs those laps. So the question is, how many do they have left? And right now, remember, the telemetry situation on their car is not good. They're not getting that information back, so they don't really know right now.
Fernandez back in 9th. Back at the front. Fittipaldi leads it. This is the fight for 2nd. We're going to look at speeds at the line.
Yeah, Rick brings up the telemetry problem again. Remember, Team Rahal had that same problem with Max Pappas, denying Max his first victory at Michigan. It didn't come until the beginning of the race, or the beginning of the season this year at that first race at Homestead. There could be a huge fuel mileage difference between Breck and Pappas, with Breck running at the front, Pappas a little farther back.
Well, that's a terrific point. Absolutely, because all clear, you're on. They're so dependent on that telemetry now, and they run it so close. That created a totally devastated Max Pappas. The very last corner, he had to give way to Tony Kanaan as he slowed down. Jan Beekes.
Paul, I keep thinking about the fact you just brought up with 14 cars running and 12 positions paying points. I agree with you. Now I think the Penske strategy has to be, let's just hang in there. I mean, 1 or 2, 3 cars fall out. It's locked in. Who would have thought that this championship would come down to who falls out of the race and the championship contender is still alive? Gary?
And Gilles de Ferran has just asked for his spotter to help him, telling him when he's clear going into the turns. Says he wasn't being told. So here's one of those rare instances when a driver out there in the middle of this confrontation at nearly 230 miles per hour is asking for more help on the radio, not less.
You know, Gary, some drivers don't want anyone to talk to them unless it's absolutely necessary, just critical information. But I think now, as Jan has suggested, we talked about earlier, we've seen a whole different strategy, a whole different race tactic from Team Penske and Gilles de Ferran compared to the race yesterday, where they went out, went right to the front, and just, they started there, but just wouldn't give it up. Today, Gilles de Ferran much more comfortable to hang back, and Jan, as you suggested, I think now they just want to make sure they make absolutely no mistakes and cross their fingers that they don't get tangled up in somebody else's problem.
Oh, is this great? Christian Fittipaldi has to give way to Kenny Breck, loses the momentum. Castro Neves gets around him as well. Breck is doing what he needs in laps led. He's now led 37. Second closest is Montoya with 24. There's the top 4. Montoya now working on Fittipaldi.
You know, the other thing we haven't talked about much is the fact that not only are we talking about the championship, but this championship battle has been so close that for drivers like Paul Tracy that are now out of the race, coming in, they had a shot at the title. But if things don't go well as far as points, they could fall from possibly finishing second or third in the championship all the way back to ninth. That's only a difference of about $390,000 in year-end funds.
Let me assure you, too, we are driving the statistics crew and the spotters here for ESPN a little nuts. Russ Thompson, he's trying to figure out constantly what's going on in the top 10. It changes every lap, and it means literally thousands of dollars for everybody.
And keep in mind, Paul, every guy we've talked to, the money's been secondary. They just want to win this championship. But for the guys that are now out of the championship hunt, there's a big difference on your resume saying, yeah, I finished second or third in the year 2000 in the car championship versus I finished ninth. Yeah. So there's a lot of reputation on the line here.
Oh, I finished second. I was the first guy to lose.
That's better than ninth.
Jeff Dickerson and Fran Leonard also here in the booth trying to keep track of this whole thing. I almost wish we had a camera to see some of the activity going on behind us. But the real run is on the track as Castro Neves. Now back to the front. Kenny Breck, then Montoya, then Fittipaldi, and de Ferran. You see him there? De Ferran is inching up into this battle. Back behind this battle, you get a glimpse from time to time of Alex Tagliani, who you saw is turning incredibly fast laps as he comes to the end of his rookie season. And his teammate Carpentier is back there as well, though he is 2 laps behind. Remember, he got involved in that situation that took out both Serbia and Michael Andretti when Tony Kanaan's engine let go.
You know, we watch these leaders. We watch Breck trying to get that extra point. I look back a little further at Moreno and Fernandez in 8th and 9th place, trying to figure out what those telemetry numbers say that are going to the Patrick Racing team. These guys, even though we keep watching the front, if they have to make that additional stop, these 2 Patrick drivers will be right at the front. It could reshuffle the entire order and, of course, have championship implications.
Well, there is Tag with de Ferran. And back up to the front. We are enjoying an incredible run at California Speedway in the 500. The battle for the championship and the battle for the $1 million to the winner of this race. Continues to seesaw back and forth at the front of the 500. Breck led the last time across the line, and he continues to roll up what he needs, which is leading at the line, but he's battling with Helio Castroneves. That's Montoya back there in third, Fittipaldi in fourth, with Pappas working on him, and then the two Forsyth cars, Alex Tagliani and Patrick Carpentier.
We're seeing this lap after lap. Castroneves leading down the back straightaway, Breck going down the inside. Castroneves' car working perfectly at the high side, but this is what matters, right? There. And that time,
Breck
did it once again by inches.
Maybe 4. we want to do something now that we don't get to do very often, if at all. You know who they are. You're looking at them just as we are. Let's all sit back and just enjoy this great run. Carpentier pull low and off the course. He's going for a routine stop.
He may have some gearbox problems, we hear, Paul.
Oh, yeah, they're at the back of the car now. Carpentier does roll and rejoins the fight.
Hear that call about fuel pressure?
Sure did.
Generally means that you're running out of fuel. I don't know whose radio that was.
That was Christian Fittipaldi's radio. He's staying out there.
We'll make a run up and find out what the deal is with the crew.
Castroneves again works high with Breck behind him.
You usually get one chance at that as soon as the fuel pressure alarm flickers. If you're not in that lap, keep in mind they're using a gallon for every 2 miles around here. You're out, because these cars now have been absolutely fine-tuned by the end of the season to pick up every drop of fuel. But if it was Christian Fittipaldi that we did here, he's staying out.
Very important. This mileage to finish.
No movement in the Newman Haas pits, as if they are ready to refuel Christian Fittipaldi as he drops back into third. And for the first time that I've noticed it, Kenny Breck actually outruns the high line on Castroneves.
Hey, Paul?
Yeah.
According to the team, they say that it wasn't fuel pressure. He's asking what kind of mileage does he need to get. Sure sounded like fuel pressure, didn't it?
Sure did to me.
I think that was Portuguese for fuel pressure anyway.
Portuguese, the native language of Brazil, which Parker also speaks fluently in W, of course.
We just intercepted another radio conversation, Jan. And in fact, now they are talking about mileage. Their calculation was exactly what I had, 2.55 miles per gallon. That's a big number, but not impossible if you stick back in the draft.
Carpentier's back into the pits. What a great run for Alex Barron, though. See him up here running in the front of this field. He's dropped back to 7th now, but he's in there, he's fighting, he's putting on a show, and he needs to do that because he's one of those guys that certainly is a candidate for a seat next year on a full-time ride. Well, we hope you're enjoying this as much as we are. The battle for the championship, a great battle for the lead at the 500. We'll be back. Helio Castroneves and Kenny Breck have just peeled off of the high-speed run, and they are heading for the pits. Rick DeBrule.
Kenny Breck, the first man to come in, he was complaining of a little bit of a push. Now, you remember, they're not running with complete telemetry. As a result, they have to do some calculations, and he's no longer running on the same sequence as Max Pappas. So there's a little calculating going on. Small change on the front wing, and he's back out. Gary?
Waiting to come off the jacks, fielding, not quite complete. Revs way up. Castroneves. Now he rolls in 12.5 seconds. Remember, he stalled yesterday in the first pit stop, and it ended up costing him many, many positions. No worries today.
They leave the pits the way they came in, with Catherine Neves leading Breck. Here back on the track is the battle for the lead. Pappas, Montoya goes around him. No indication at Pappas's pit that they are yet ready to bring him in.
There was an indication that the track is changing. We can see they put a lot of front wing. They put a lot of front wing into Kenny Breck's car. Track temperature now the hottest it's been all weekend long. It's gone from 74 to 90 degrees.
Here comes one of the contenders in, Jill DeFerrin. Gary Gerald is on his way to you.
Yes, indeed. We look straight up the road. Got the low-angle look from our colleague Rick Rice's camera. Penske counts him into the spot, and there he is, trying to wrap up a possible $2 million payday, $1 million for the championship, $1 million if he can win the race. But obviously, they're going to have to make another stop before this one is done. Waiting for the fuel. And we got him rolling at 12.5 seconds again in that vicinity. Let's go to Rick.
Let's go down to Jan Beekes instead.
And just in front of Gary Gerald, we have Christian Fittipaldi on his way down here. So certainly must not have been fuel pressure, because this is on target for the Newman Haas team. They're going to go for 4 tires and fill it to the brim with fuel. Looking for any front wing changes, and it's taking out. Just like he thought, Parker, the track might be going a bit loose.
Tagliani stops. You see him pulling away.
12.5 and plenty of wheel spin for Christian.
So now Montoya becomes the leader of the race. There's Max in pursuit. Alex Barron is in third. Do not count Barron out. Remember the run at Surfers Paradise until a mechanical took him. Jill DeFerrin, as he's coming up to speed. And Kenny Breck slows. Kenny Breck slows down. Kenny Breck slows on the backstretch. It's a long way to the pits. The crew is there.
It's running. It's just like yesterday when the turbo blew. It's running, but it's not. It's running, but it's not running. All right.
And then there were 2.
Kenny has done everything that was required of him. He'll roll to a stop so slowly after such.
Give you 1 turn away. Don't forget to pump the brakes. Don't forget to pump the brakes.
It's such a high-speed season for Kenny. Rick?
Boy, how frustrating this crew. Everything just kind of, all the arms went up in the air at the same time together. You see they're going to go to work on the backside, but the reality is, coming in at this point pretty much puts his championship hopes out of any possibility. They're going to go ahead. They're working on the, hoping to look at the turbo, work on it. But the chances are right now, everything is gone for Kenny Breck. Jan?
And the target crew is eagerly awaiting Juan Montoya's arrival. And like I said earlier, boy, it's amazing. Just like Gary had said earlier, 50 miles an hour, it seems like you're just crawling down pit road. But this is an important pit stop for Juan Montoya. He's been saving fuel, not really going for it. But I have a feeling that Juan Montoya has got a whole bunch of speed left in this car. Look for them to make about a half to 1 turn change on the front wings. They do that, and they add front wings. Yeah. So that's different than what we saw for Fittipaldi.
Rick DeBrule.
Just want to let you know, Kenny Breck, what they've done, they say they have a broken turbo. They're sending them back out. Going to be running for points. They pretty much filled it up with gasoline, with fuel, let him go back out there. But at this point, he's just running for points.
Now we're going to see how fast the normally aspirated 2.65 V8 engine is here. I tell you, it's just the worst nightmare a driver could have, because you are so slow. All you're doing is, depending on your spotter, looking in your mirrors and just trying to stay out of everybody's way.
There was another argument at dinner. It's 161 cubic inches.
2.65 liters, Paul. Welcome to the new world.
We were arguing the new world versus my old world. Cubic inches and guys with front engine cars.
Yeah, the world's an oblique spheroid. It's not flat, but there you go.
Max Pappas now at the 171st lap has the lead of the race. And Kenny Breck, that's going to be his speed, I would think.
No,
Margaret.
I don't think so, Paul. I think Kenny realizes there's just not enough speed. He's down into the warm-up lane now, and I would expect he'll bring it back in.
Yeah, I was going to say, even when they rolled out, the whole concept of that, while noble to look for the points,
creates a certain danger, not only for Kenny, but everybody else in the field. We'll see how he, the team, and the officials handle it. Points as they are right now. Oh, baby. Casey Mears, we haven't had a chance to talk about him too much, making his first ride in the Champ Cars. Doing a pretty good job of it. He was up to 5th. Before he came into the pits, lap behind the lead of the race, and Max Pappas heads down onto the pit road, Rick DeBrule.
Well, for all the problems his teammates having things going very smoothly, he wasn't getting good fuel mileage early on. That's why they let him move back. Now they're going to bring him in, change all 4 tires. They're also supposed to do a front wing adjustment, just a slight wing adjustment. But overall, they like the way the car is working. They want him to go.
Yeah, that in fact was a slight adjustment, but look further back at the Patrick Racing pits. Adrian Fernandez comes out as Kenny Breck comes in, and I'm sure this is going to mean the end of it totally for Kenny Breck. But Fernandez still in that championship fight. And Alex Barron has picked up the lead of the race, and just up pit from Fernandez, Barron comes in. Rick?
Alex Barron, who we haven't talked about very much today, comes in. They're going to go ahead and do everything normal. No major wing changes right now. They're just changing the tires. Everything seems to be going smoothly. In fact, they're making no wing adjustments whatsoever, sending him back out.
Roberto Moreno has picked up the lead. He comes in.
You can see him smoke that right front brake right at the speed limit sign.
See how this goes for Moreno. Going to change all 4. Moreno cleans the visor.
Just remind everyone, this isn't as easy as it looks. As it looks for the drivers on that in lap, they've got to drag the left foot to heat up these carbon fiber brakes, the ones that are allowed on the super speedways, as opposed to the normal cast iron rotors. Then making that transition from 230, 240 down onto off the banking, and then trying to get these things down to 50 miles an hour, and then transition from the asphalt onto the concrete in the pit box is very, very difficult.
And Moreno tries to get it back up to full speed as the field comes around. Did you see Tarso Marquez? He came off of that last corner, kicked the Swift up very close to the wall. And I got to say, he's been giving that car a great ride the past several races, and a very good ride here. We were also talking about the speed limit and how slow it looks when they come down to the 50. It's pretty slow to the drivers, too, because in the first 90-minute practice that they had, the only practice that they had on Friday, there were 28 speed limit violations. 176 complete. Kenny Breck has now climbed out of the car and out of the championship. He talks with his team, who gave him a great year and only fell short by a few miles in the championship battle. For the first time since the 22nd lap, Gil de Ferran is in the lead of the race. He got around Elio Castroneves, his teammate, and we'll see whether or not Castroneves is going to let him lead as he comes to the line. Here's how he got the lead.
Castroneves, of course, working high as he has all day. Gil de Ferran says, thanks for the tow, little buddy. I'll just be taking the lead now. Maybe this is the change, the time that Team Penske said, all right, let's go back to yesterday's strategy, which is go to the point, win the race, win the championship, have a very nice time depositing that check at the bank come tomorrow morning.
Of course, de Ferran had the lead at the line. Castroneves is in there. Now Castroneves is in a position to protect his teammate as the leader of the race and the potential champion. And of course, if it ended at this moment, de Ferran would in fact be the champion. Fernandez, his closest and only competitor now, is back in 10th place. It does not seem likely for Adrian Fernandez.
Well, and the necessary fuel that we saw prior to this pit stop.
Whoa! Looks like Pappas.
Pappas, I think you're right, Paul. Yep.
Yellow came out. Something broken there.
Well, it looks like the rear tires are very shiny right now, Paul.
It was smoking when it came by end of pit road.
Oh, it was. Then, and it's smoking there.
Yep, you can see him down low there on the white line. Yahoo! Little Joey Chitwood action. Max showing off for the fans here.
Wow.
Wow, that was a great recovery.
Christian Fittipaldi and Alex Tagliani, I don't think, like that all that much, but there was nothing Max could do about it. He did a beautiful job of saving that race car. And well, when you put water on an already hot engine that's already blowing, it does tend to steam.
You have to have perfect timing to have that come out straight ahead. He snapped in full opposite lock as it came around. He got the steering back out, kept the clutch in, stayed off the brake, kept the wheels rolling. Nice recovery.
Okay, now let's think about this, Parker. You're a team manager. We have 184 laps complete. You're looking at 250 laps. What would you do?
Well, first of all, what you're going to do is figure out that your guys are now putting fuel in the bank. This is now going to be a wide open sprint race. It couldn't be any better. We've played the chess game of fuel strategy the entire race. All these guys now with one more stop are going to the end. It's a matter of who can go the fastest with what they've had available. Jan Beekes has been saying the whole time that he thinks Juan Montoya may be the man.
But Jan, at this point, would you be bringing somebody in and topping him, or would you just wait until the real opportunity?
Well, it appears as though, at least with the crews that are out here and the tires laid out, that it'll be Montoya. I can look up and see Fittipaldi. And
Both
it looks
Penske
like both
cars.
Penske cars,
Yes.
yeah. So it looks like the answer to your question is the top teams have chosen to pit, and who's to argue with them?
Well, I don't think there's any guarantee, depending on Yellow, that what they get on this stop for fuel is enough to carry them for what's going to turn out to be, what, 65 laps?
And that's the point.
Yeah.
That's not happening. Unless Pat Patrick has that aerial refueling rig that we've seen earlier in the year. That's not going on.
And at Pat Patrick's pit, Rick?
Well, the situation, they're leaving Adrian Fernandez out. They've been playing the fuel strategy. They think they can buy with just one more stop, but they need yellows like this one to go the whole way.
Max limping, that's from the other accident. Remember, Max had an accident on Friday, pretty big hit. They let him come back and qualify and run, so that limp is not from what you just saw, that spin. It's from Friday. Well, everybody who is a contender in this race, certainly in the championship, with the exception of Fernandez, is probably going to stop. Patrick Racing Team does have Fernandez's tires up on the wall, but not over the wall. So Pat Patrick, who is a man who tends to gamble, there he is, may be getting ready to throw the dice once again. He pulls off the headset. That's Jim McGee, who helps figure this whole thing out with Pat. There are two minds right there that really know their way around a racetrack. But against Roger Penske, the Patrick numbers are pretty shallow. Here they come. Penske Racing, Montoya, and the rest. We'll start with Gary Gerould.
We talk so often about the pressure on the drivers with what's at stake. How about the pressure on these guys right now that are about to perform their miracles? They'll try to do it in 12 seconds. Rick, here's DeFerrin and Catherine Evans.
How quickly strategies changed. When they saw everybody else come in, they said, let's do the same thing. They're going to come in, top them off, a couple changes on the wing, they send them back out. He said the car wasn't working right. Gary?
Well, there goes Moreno, there goes Barron. The Penske cars have yet to move. Problem for Gilles DeFerrin. He stalled it. Now it fires. It hesitates. It catches. He's gone. Fortunately, it's under yellow, but he's still lost track position to the other front runners.
And Gary, for Montoya, 8 seconds flat. Awesome stop for them. They took tires. They did not make a wing change, but I understand they did change the stagger because he says there's too much push in the car.
Let's take a look at DeFerrin and his problems. You see him dive with the starter motor. They're always standing there with it, but it looks like they had a little trouble getting it plugged in. So DeFerrin falters on this stop. And of course, the best guess is that there's going to be one more stop, and if they run green, then the best guess is that's going to be in the final few miles of this 500-mile race. And look there behind the pace car. Who is that? Casey Mears, his first race, but he's got the Mears gang blood in him. California Speedway and the running of the 500 points as they are right now. Gilles DeFerrin's still the man, but well, let's consider what has to happen with Adrian Fernandez. There is Adrian. He sits back in 8th place. He needs to come up 4 positions. He needs to get up with these leaders. But they're all bunched together, and when the green comes out, it's going to be his chance. We'll be back. Casey Mears. Casey Mears in his very first Champ Car race, after driving in the Indy Lights race, is up at point on this field. And in the last round of pit stops, here's the summary with that stall costing DeFerrin greatly. Now, what about the ongoing rivalry, Patrick and Penske? We begin in the Patrick picks. Here's Rick DeBrule.
It's come down to the two giants in kart racing. Pat Patrick, what's it going to take for Adrian Fernandez to win this championship?
Well, I don't think I'm a giant, but it's a pleasure to be racing my old friend Roger. So I just think it's going to be strategy, which we've been very careful with, and who's there at the end. Obviously, Roger has a faster car than I do.
Do you have any tricks left in that bag?
Oh, I don't have tricks. I just go racing.
All right, Pat Patrick. He's going racing now, Gary.
Well, let's see if we can get a word. Roger Penske's been in deep discussion with the team right here. We heard Pat a moment ago say Roger's got a faster car. Roger, we're just talking to your old rival down there, Pat Patrick. He says you've got a faster car. Do you, in fact, have a faster car in your battle for the championship with Fernandez and the Patrick team?
Well, I think what we need to do is keep an eye on Fernandez. We have a few points ahead of him in the championship, so what we need to do here is be sure that we run all day here. Jill looked awful strong there, but you know, with Pat down there in McGee, they got a great strategy going. What we need to do is stay on our game plan here. Jill's done a great job today.
Did that stall hurt you at all?
Well, it didn't help us any, but look, that didn't put us out of contention. That's the main thing. We're right behind Fernandez.
You're getting the good fuel mileage and everything that you want, the balance on the car, what you want at this point?
The balance is perfect, and certainly we can go with one stop here now, so, you know, it looks pretty good.
All right, thank you. That's Roger Penske. Dan Luganbill, his man down here, says, I'm on point patrol today. He keeps updating a chart almost every lap on where they stand in the championship battle.
And you want to sit across the poker table with either one of those guys? Oh, boy. Patrick and Penske, the battle for the championship now with young Casey Mears going to be on point when they come back to the green flag. One more stop due for everybody. The question is, when will it come? And we'll be out in front of the finish. We'll be back. Look down from the Honda Helicam at young Casey Mears leading this field, followed by Alex Barron in the actual race order. Barron's done a terrific job to keep that car on the lead and up at the front of the field. As we show you the current standings, they're both going to have to hold off a pretty serious Roberto Moreno looking for his second win, and perhaps an even more serious Juan Montoya, as we now have 192 of the 250 complete, an expectation of one more pit stop. The Budweiser Hard Charger Award, it takes a change. Adrian Fernandez comes up to the point on the Hard Charger Award. Max Pappas was the reason, with a blown engine and a spin for this yellow, and he is with Gary.
Well, Max, I guess this is a terrible way to put an exclamation point on this season. Can you kind of sum up what the 20 events have been like for you this year, after especially starting out with a victory at the season opener?
Hey, Gary, you know, this was mine. This was mine. You know, we were on a good strategy. I was out there doing whatever I wanted. And this year, you know, it's like this. You know, it looks like it's a lot of up and down, a lot of DNF. This is going to be number 12 for us. And just put this year back. You know, we're going to come back with a lot of strength, you know, improving ourselves all the time. And, you know, despite my leg, I have a lot of fire in my heart, so that's going to be no problem.
Was the leg at all a factor today? Because we saw you hobbling when you got out of the car.
No, I have a kind of broken knee here, you know, so it's not so good, you know. When I was in the car, it was okay, but this is a big proof of a lot of strength in my brain and in our heart.
These are tough guys. Thank you.
He won the first race of the year. Has been unable to duplicate that. There they are. That's the top 5 right now, and they're taking great care to get the course cleaned up. Today'd be a good day to take a little extra sick time. There are plenty of them here at the track, though not nearly the crowd that they had on Sunday. Still a pretty fine-looking crowd. And I just wonder how many of you at home are watching this live instead of on your VCR, and probably called in and said, oh, I'm feeling bad. Gary Gerald, we're expecting a movement in the Penske pits.
Well, we're wondering, because we saw the crew go over the wall with the fueling and the vent hose. They were going to top Gilles off. There was a discussion about it. Now we heard that it's one lap to go. Are they coming? They are coming. Yes, they will come. He lost positions on that stall, so they're going to come in and top it off with 57 laps to go, and I believe Montoya's going to be in the same boat.
That's right, Gary. I think maybe they heard what was happening with Penske. They now jumped over the wall. Same thing for Montoya.
Well, the pace car lights are still on, which indicates we are going to go another lap after this one. But the whole move of that, I understand it for DeFerrin, but it still doesn't get you to the end.
Well, it doesn't. My fuel chart doesn't go that far, Paul. I think they're just looking for other yellows and just keeping their fingers crossed.
Rick DeBrule.
Everybody's planning on coming in. Indeed, Fernandez will be coming in as well. The plan is for him to come in, top up on fuel, and head back out. No major changes in the car. They've been having a few telemetry problems. Apparently there's an antenna that's broken on the car, so sometimes when they go by they get the proper fuel reading, sometimes they don't. Now they bring him in. Once again, this is just a top off. Give him what fuel you can. Don't make any major adjustments. Send him back out. Gary?
Montoya, Fittipaldi roll by. Now DeFerrin rolls in. This should be very quick. He hits the marks. Everything's engaged. He's rolling under 3 seconds. Jan and Fernandez just eases out in front of him.
And Juan Montoya leads in 4.2 seconds, and he gets out in front of the other group.
Back in the field.
So,
just get to turn 2.
very interesting strategy.
Remember, you cannot pass.
Well, they're all going to come out and line up behind the rest of the field. Is that's a calculation now? 55 laps, you'd have to get 3.2 gallons.
Yeah, okay.
I'll tell you when it's green, Juan.
And we've been close to 3.2 on which occasion in the modern, say in the last century.
That was our rental car on the way here today, Paul. But DeFerrin's done exactly what he needs to. All he has to do is keep Fernandez right in sight. They're far enough back where the championship points are only split by 1 apiece at that point. If they finish this way, DeFerrin is the champion.
As they come back up to speed, Alex Tagliani will get a black flag stop and go for Brush and a teammate. As he came in to change the left rear, Roberto Moreno brings him back to the green, or excuse me, Casey Mears brings them back to the green flag, but Alex Barron immediately moves out and around him. Moreno is in there too, but Alex Barron goes to the front. Players are back in the back of the field trying to come forward.
As they came back to green, the radio was alive with them telling the drivers, use as much fuel as you need. They're going to have to make one more stop unless this race slows down significantly because of a lot of yellow.
Montoya comes low, Castroneves goes high. They come up alongside of Casey Mears. Montoya takes second away from Mears. Mears goes low, Castroneves high. Castroneves to third. Now they chase Alex Barron. Both Montoya and Castroneves look for the front.
Clear.
And Montoya now has broken the draft at this distance. Jan, just as we've talked about, I have to agree with you. I think Montoya's got the most in reserve. He's had it all year long. He's led twice as many laps as anybody else. He's the guy that can go the fastest on the least amount of mileage with the car that's just the hairiest to hang on to. But now we can see Castroneves making a good run down the back straightaway.
And look back there in third place. We've talked about him and his potential somewhat this season. It's Michel Jourdain. That's a Mercedes. It's going to be the last one in the series for a while. He's giving it a ride.
You know, this young man has showed so much potential over the years. Was one of the youngest kart drivers when he first got to the series, and he just hasn't hit the right brakes at the right time. But right now, he's running very, very strong. He's got a championship.
Oh, Castroneves had so much momentum in the draft. He almost got into the back of Montoya, darts inside, takes the lead.
And you've got to be so careful. That's the problem we saw with Christian Fittipaldi earlier in the year at Michigan. When you pop out, you go from having virtually no air on the car to the front end being suddenly loaded. The steering effort doubles, and the car makes a huge movement. You've got to be very, very careful with your hands. That was almost a big moment.
51 to go. I want to try to keep these tires on because it's going to be a short fill at the end.
Fernandez needs 3 positions. He is just ahead of Gil DeFerrin. DeFerrin just has to keep an eye on Fernandez.
Well, and what they were telling Fernandez is not the top-up they did just at the end, but the full pit stop before that. There were only 2 drivers that didn't get tires, and that was Adrian Fernandez and Alex Barron. Oh, excuse me, it was Roberto Moreno and Alex Barron. They're trying to make these tires go to the end.
Rick DeBrule keeping track of Fernandez.
Well, just to let you know, after he went on that last pit stop, they were saying, okay, from now on, use the fuel as you want. What's important about that is they have not been letting him run at full rich all day. In fact, at one point, they leaned it out so much, he was worried he was actually having an engine problem. So for the first time, he has the green light to go.
Well, the record number of lead changes, 62 at the 98 Michigan 500. There were 52 this year at Michigan. And as Jourdain closes in, there have been 53 official lead changes. And now 4.
Look at that. Alex Barron back by Jourdain.
Oh.
Jourdain takes the lead for a moment, then Alex Barron comes out to the front.
But you notice now.
Oh, I just heard an engine go off. Was that Jourdain's? We saw him just drop off the screen there. It looks like Mercedes-Benz may be going out of the series with a bang, Paul.
Well, Jourdain is still rolling.
No, but
still off the speed.
No, his engine's definitely off song, Paul.
Yeah, he's losing miles an hour in revs very quickly.
You could hear kind of a funny sound, almost like a header type deal, but not that pronounced as he went by us, guys.
Just as we saw Mark
Another
Liddell.
puff of smoke there. Looked like at the back of Casey's car. We'll track that for you. That's second place behind Alex Barron that you're watching. There it is, the top 3. Montoya moved to the inside. Further back, DeFerrin is now closing up behind Fernandez. But just hold right here, you'll see him coming. There's Fernandez, there's DeFerrin.
Now, here's the problem that Fernandez has, Paul. Rick said that this is the first time Fernandez has gone to full power. When you do that, changing the power setting changes how the car handles. You start putting more power, more torque through the rear wheels, tends to make the car go loose. And look at the distance that DeFerrin was able to put on Fernandez very, very quickly.
Yeah, Fernandez is at full power. Give me a break here. Look at that pass. Kenny Brett out of the race, out of the championship, Gary.
He's had some time to go back and change and think about what this day. Kenny, it looked like you did everything you could possibly do. How tough to accept this kind of a fate when you were so strong?
Well, it's just the way it is, you know. When you're behind going into the last race, then you really have a tough thing in front of you, you know. But the Shell team did whatever we could, you know. We're leading the laps, we were leading the race and everything, so it was good anyway. But it's disappointing.
Can you have fun when you're racing wheel to wheel at these kinds of speeds? Was there any point when it was enjoyable, or are you just so focused on trying to win the championship you never think about that?
Yeah, the latter. You're just focusing on what you're doing, try to do the best you can, you know, and can't say enough of the guys, and the whole team did a great job today. But we unfortunately we couldn't reach the finish line.
You made it very entertaining for us. We congratulate you on a great season.
Thank you.
At the annual banquet, he will go away with the Jim Truman Rookie of the Year honors. Michel Jourdain Jr. has stepped out of the car. His day and Mercedes time in kart is done. Castor Neves moves around Barron. So does Montoya. And once again, let's just sit and enjoy this fight. DeFerrin is 7th. There is Fernandez. Tagliani was in there, but Tagliani is a lap off the lead. DeFerrin's run becomes a little more desperate. He needs 5 positions in order to really be back in this battle for the championship. You
you've heard the discussion with the team. For everybody, we expect one more but very fast pit stop. Helio Castroneves continues his battle for the lead with Juan Montoya, and Alex Barron is right in that battle. Back and forth at the 500. There are your current standing. Alex Barron is staying in there, watching this great fight at the front of the field between Castroneves and Montoya. So close that the last time around, the computer kicked up that the interval first to second was 0-0. I don't want to see that. It was, yeah, 100th on the last time around. And just to make absolutely sure, we showed you the points as of now. It is Fernandez that has to do any making up of position if he is going to win this race for the championship. And right now it's looking less and less great because he is the last car on the lead lap, currently running in 8th place.
And right now Fernandez is exactly a half a lap behind Gilles de Ferran.
All right, let's go to the pits, Gary.
Well, you talk about emotion in this series, and sometimes we get callous about it, but look at this. Here's an embrace. Michel Jourdain Jr. has been going around and being embraced by every member of the team. What did it feel like to be out there leading a 500-mile race that had $1 million payday at the end if you could stay there?
I mean, it's so sad, you know, because, you know, since the beginning of the season, I mean, you know, with the accident of Tony, and I mean, all this season obviously was for them, for Tony, Shirley, Ross, and Larry, and I mean, I think it's good, you know, I think we led the last lap of the season, and I mean, I promise you, have the best car in the racetrack. I mean,
we salute you for battling. I know it's emotional. I know it's a tough time. It was great to see you up there with those leaders.
Thanks, Ari. Thank you.
Rick DeBrule.
Casey Mears came in, made a pit stop, flamed on his way out. A little excess fuel perhaps coming off the backside. They caught fire. But you got to remember, before today, Casey'd never run pit stops.
Well, Casey has had a fine ride today up at the front of the field. And remember, he's Roger Mears' son, Rick Mears' nephew. There are a lot of genes at work there. Jan Beekes.
We're watching Montoya out there battling with Castroneves. Check with the team. They're still in 7th gear for Montoya. Now what they do is they downshift to 6th gear when they really want to pour the coals to it. So, Parker, I think you're correct. I think he's still got some in reserve here.
And we were talking to Parker about Fernandez and turning up the wick, but him not going anywhere. But that can be horsepower. It also Montoya. And that's going to bring out the yellow. And that's going to bring it into range for the pit. Oh, it's changing again. Montoya has an engine go. Attrition has been an incredible factor. It brings us now down to only 9 cars actually left running as we go to the final miles and laps of this race in the battle for the championship. Chip Ganassi, the car owner. Oh, he's a happy puppy. They could have won this race. He wanted to. Here it is, Parker.
Juan was on his way to trying to win that 3rd 500, the Michigan 500, the Indy 500. Yet another engine letting go. Jan said he was up in 7th gear. We knew that he was playing it conservatively, measuring Castroneves. But this is so stressful, running these engines over 15, even close to 16,000 RPM for this distance.
Not just stressful for the engine, stressful for the driver. Constant day at these high speeds, and can you imagine if you're sitting back in that field and start to see that smoke coming?
And that's the worst place to have it happen. Usually it'll happen just as you breathe the throttle on the way in, but to have it mid-corner, it's terrible.
This is Casey. When he headed out of the pits, you heard Rick DeBrule refer to that like a top fuel dragster at night.
Just a little extra fuel in the exhaust, just getting ignited on the way out as Montoya rolls back into his pit box.
And for Juan Montoya, as an uncharacteristic posture for him, moving slowly. He leaves the series now in his rookie year as the champion, gave us some great moments, and now moves on to Formula One. We sure wish him the best.
I feel very, very fortunate to have been at his first test at Homestead very quietly 2 years ago when he first ran with Chip Ganassi Racing. I was so impressed. The first time out of the pits, the first time he had ever been in the car, smoked the rear tires, was flat on it as soon as he left. And I called up a few friends that day and said, boy, I don't know much about this kid, but you better watch for him because he is amazing. And he's proven to be exactly that.
Well, and I think in the nervousness, though he didn't really show it that way of his first year, we certainly got an impression of arrogance, but it's not really there. He has a great sense of humor, and this year we've had a great time with him. Like I say, he teamed up with us at a charity go-kart run with Fred Briggs and the gang up at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. He's constantly smiling and joking. It's good to have his dad Pablo around too. They're just a great family to have, and we really hope that they do well.
Well, if you're a team owner with a multi-million-dollar team, you want to put someone in the car that's extremely confident in their abilities. They actually have the ability to back up that confidence. Montoya, just the little things that I've learned from him over the last 2 years, whether it's engineers, he says, hey, I've had a different one every year of my career. Their job is to set up the car. My job is to drive the car. He doesn't get involved in a lot of the head games, a lot of the other things that the other drivers do. He said, yeah, sure, there's a lot of friendship here. I said, well, you missed that in Formula One? He goes, not at all. I've come to race and to win those races. I'm not here for friendship. That's the guy I want in my car come race day.
And of course, as long as you're talking about Target, Jip Ganassi, as we wait for the stops as they peel off, reminder that Alex Zanardi is here at the track. And every time he's asked about what you're doing, he just gets that great little Zanardi smile on his face. Go to Rick DeBrule first.
We can tell you how championships are won. In about the last 30 seconds, they've changed their mind 4 times on whether they're going to have the tires on or not. They're going to go ahead and bring them in, get it up to fuel. They want 3 turns of the wing. A moment ago, they weren't going to put on tires. Then they decided they were going to put on tires. Go ahead and give them fresh tires, send them back out, and get them back out. Gary?
Castroneves is already in. DeFerrin is now in on his marks. This will be the last time for these teams to get their fueling skills, retiring skills done. Castroneves is rolling. DeFerrin is now rolling. Fernandez is right behind Moreno. It looks like Gilles DeFerrin is going to beat them out. Jan?
And it looks like Christian Fittipaldi beat the whole group out of pit road. Big high fives down here at Newman Haas.
Well, that's exactly what happened, but I wouldn't want to be the official down there to call how Fernandez, Moreno, and DeFerrin actually came out. That's an eyeball job that they do. It's not on the computer transponder circuit. Christian Fittipaldi rolls out of the pits with 221 laps complete as the leader of the race, and there is some indication that Fernandez will be coming back in. 3 of the Patrick team guys are over the wall, and one of the officials has been there. Rick DeBrule?
Well, apparently they were working on the rear wing. They took it down 2 clicks. The idea was they were only supposed to bring it down 1. They're concerned by doing that they've done too much. They feel they got to bring them in, even though it's a yellow flag situation right now, not lose as much time, and then send them back out. But I got to tell you, the team is not happy.
Well, he's coming right to you, Rick DeBrule, now as the field comes across the line. Tarso Marquez makes a stop for the Panasonic Swift team, and going around him now there is Adrian Fernandez. Rick?
Yeah, you see him roll in. They don't have to put any fuel, not make any tire adjustments, just make that wing adjustment on the rear. They never did change the front wing.
As long as he watches the speed limit heading out, this really shouldn't be all that costly to him, just because there are so few cars left on the course right now. They will catch up to the back of the line pretty quickly. During the stops, this was Newman Haas's Christian Fittipaldi. And what a nice stop it was. It put him in the lead of the race. We'll be back with more. Hi, there are 9 cars left running. As we look at the field summary, Tarso Marquez not a factor, though, at 3 laps behind the lead. And we're going to sprint it to the finish once again, as we see so often in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. The points as they are right now. DeFerrin now can certainly begin to feel it, but he has to remember, and certainly is remembering, the Honda problems that he has seen today with other teams. Saw yesterday with a plenum explosion of Paul Tracy. DeFerrin is there. Green flag is ready to come out. Yellow. Yellow. They're not going to start it. Let's go down the pits once again. Jan Bikas, Montoya's out of the car and done with his season.
Yes, he is. It's been a great season, Juan, but I know not the way you wanted to end it. It looked to me, Parker and I thought you had a lot in reserve. Was that the case?
Yeah, to be honest with you, yeah, we had, I was running fully in 7th gear, just cruising behind Elio. So, the car had a lot of potential. One of the laps, I reaching it up to see how it will respond, and even in 7th gear, it was just flying.
You've run with almost everybody out there, including the championship contenders. Who looks hot?
For the win today, I'll put the money on Elio.
And what about the championship?
Oh, I think Penske's going to take the $2 million today.
All right, well, we'll miss you in kart. Thanks for all the great memories.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, on.
Well, the decision was that the field was just a little too spread out as they came off of 4. They wanted a better restart than that. So Jim Swintel decided to give them the yellow flag. They didn't put the pace car out. The momentum picks up, and we're ready to go to the green flag now. Patrick Racing guys, they're watching their boy Fernandez as the green flag now flies. And Moreno moves to the inside of Castroneves as Fittipaldi got great momentum once again back to the flag and begins to disappear.
Christian Fittipaldi hoodwinked these guys. He got them off throttle, then got back on at exactly the right time going down into turn 3. But it looks now like Castroneves and Moreno are working together using the draft. They should be up behind Christian here in about another half a lap.
Christian Fittipaldi, who has had a pretty good year, but has not scored a victory since his a year ago at Road America at Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, has announced.
Oh, big smoke. Oh, and a spin. Castroneves going into 1, into 2. The engine let go. He got in the oil, backed in hard on the outside wall.
So Helio Castroneves, after an incredible run and a pretty good shot, as Montoya suggested, at the win here today, has the engine go. And what does that say about DeFerrin's engine?
Well, it's all about engines at this point, Paul. We've seen each manufacturer let go. Now, DeFerrin, the last of the Honda contenders.
Castroneves appears to be okay. Let's look at what happened.
I was watching him coming down into the corner, watching how Moreno and Castroneves were going to work the line. You could see the smoke at the back. The oil hits the rear tires. Castroneves simply a passenger. Big impact, flash fire at the back of the car. Watch it one more time. Moreno running. Castroneves up high. That's not been a problem, but it's the oil on the rear tires. They entered there. I guarantee you they've got these cars trimmed out. They were flat out into that first corner, well over 240 miles an hour. As I said earlier, when the engine lets go mid-corner, it's every driver's worst nightmare because all of a sudden you lose the load on the back of the tires. Corner entry is no better, though. Fortunately, he hits at a fairly good angle, the back of the car absorbing the majority of the impact, which is exactly how you want to get in. So you've got all that crushable space, not getting into your survival cell into the cockpit.
An enormous hit for Helio Castroneves, the safety team right there, and they're going to take a little time to make sure he gets out safely. That engine just lit up and slammed the back end almost at right angles into the wall, and that's an awful lot of energy transferring through the components in the back, the gearbox and the engine itself transferring through to the driver. We'll be back. Very, very carefully. While we've heard nothing from the scene, that appears to be precautionary, but still they want to be careful. You see that, the way he got into the wall there at nearly a 90-degree angle, that's a lot of energy transferring through.
And without fuel being a consideration now, consider he was in 5th gear, top revs, full power. This is the fastest these cars go, going down into that first corner in excess of 240 miles an hour. It did not scrub off very much speed when it made contact with the outside wall.
So there's the way the points stand right now. Should the same thing happen to DeFerrin, Fernandez still has a very good chance of taking a championship. Course caution. Helio Castroneves is still in the car. They are working with him. They're taking it very carefully, as they should be. Here's the way it is in the championship. Even if DeFerrin would have this failure that Castroneves just had and have it as soon as we go back to green, Fernandez still has to come up 5 positions, and I think that's questionable.
Well, we were talking about it during the break, Paul. I don't think, Jan doesn't think, you don't think, everyone on our crew doesn't think that Fernandez has the car in order to get up to the front.
Just so I've said it correctly, Fernandez needs to get up there if DeFerrin goes out now. Now let's go to Gary.
Roger Penske watching intently here and contemplating. Robert Clark of Honda just came over. Now, are there concerns that as the surviving Honda out there, you're going to be able to go the remaining laps and wrap this championship up that way?
Well, Jerry, I don't know. It was hard to tell. It looked like smoke came out underneath the car when he shifted. It could have been a gearbox. It could have been an engine. You don't know. I just hope he's okay. That's the most important thing here. We're going to have to run to the end, and Jill's, done a great job during the day here. Fernandez is still out there. So as I said earlier, let's go to the end, see what happens.
Sometimes I know you're a cheerleader on the radio. Are you cheering DeFerrin on? What kind of information are you giving him now in these remaining laps?
Well, you know, he's a pretty calculating guy. I'm giving as much as I can. He's cool. We just have to wait till the end here. Just hope Elio's okay.
How are your nerves at this point?
Well, we're okay. I got to go back on the line here.
Always focused, always going after the task at hand. But I think deep inside, Paul, they're churning in there.
There's DeFerrin. And we're going to show you just a couple of things. You saw that they had Helio Castroneves out of the car. This is as Castroneves was looking at getting the high side, and then suddenly the engine let go. Backed in big time. The report that we have from the scene still is a good report, and we assume that they're merely taking care with him because of the nature of the impact.
Well, we saw the same thing with Max Pappas earlier in the weekend, that although he was reported to be fine, they put him on the stretcher just to make sure everything was okay. They got him back to medical for evaluation. We certainly hope that's the same case with Helio Castroneves.
And as you've said, that's an enormous hit, like up at 225, 227 miles an hour.
He didn't scrub off much speed, Paul, and I imagine top speed was in excess of 240 miles an hour on the way in there, because as I said earlier, they're at full power. They're now using all the revs the engines have because fuel is not a concern. He had a great draft from Moreno coming down the front straight. He went in there full throttle, I mean, absolutely flat out. So that was just a huge hit. It scrubbed off very, very little speed.
230 laps. Christian Fittipaldi behind the pace car is the leader of the race. Green race average has been well up there. Average speed of the race with the yellows is at 150.930 miles an hour. 59 lead changes. We're coming real close to that record on lead changes. We're coming real close to the end of the race as well, and we still don't have a championship decided, though it looks very, very good for DeFerrin at this moment, Parker. But as we've seen with Castroneves and other Honda-powered cars, things could change quickly.
Well, if we look at the Manufacturers' Championship, Ford had a huge lead coming in. It looks like they'll clinch it here today. Honda's been fighting all year long. As we look at the cars that are now running, we're looking at all Fords and only Gilles DeFerrin in 4th place with his Honda engine. All he has to do is make sure that he's right next to Fernandez. He can be just in front, just a position behind him for the championship. If I were Gilles, I'd keep this thing in 6th gear. I'd breathe the throttle big time going down into turns 1 and 3. We know that Fernandez has not been happy with his car all day long. And at the end of this, the guys at the front, whoever's the most trimmed out, who can hold the throttle all the way to the floor the longest and still work a little bit in traffic, they're going to go for the win. You look at DeFerrin, all he's got to do is make sure this thing gets to the finish line, frustrate Fernandez a little bit to come away with the $1 million championship.
All right. If DeFerrin stays in 4th place, Fernandez needs to move up 5 positions.
Well, he's going to need some serious help because on these super speedways, yes, bravery does come into account. Yes, driver skill, car control. But you've got to have the car underneath you basically in order to do anything here. If the car's not working, there's nothing a driver can do to overcome that.
Again, to check in at Patrick Racing, Rick DeBrule.
Just want to talk about the frustration down in Adrian Fernandez's pit. All these guys are out here watching car after car drop out. It's like watching musical chairs. The only problem is the one guy they want to drop out still hasn't done it. Every time another car comes out, it's like, oh no, why not that one?
Well, attrition has certainly been a factor in this day. 8 cars left in the field now. The last one to leave, that of Helio Castroneves. There's the top 5. Some great names there, and the battle of the championship is still on. DeFerrin and a first championship. Still under the caution. Points as they stand right now gives Gilles DeFerrin the win. There's $1 million on the line, or gives Gilles DeFerrin the championship. There is $1 million on the line for that. There are $1 million on the line for the race itself, Parker.
I've been waiting for this all day, Paul, and in Cart's version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, we've seen a season where no one has wanted to come forward and dominate the championship. Today, it looks like no one's wanted to win the race. It looks like they're running out of lifelines. There's not much left time in this game.
And official from Kart Timing and Scoring, they haven't yet issued that 1 point for the most laps led. They're holding off on that. Jan Vegas?
Some interesting radio conversations and some discussions up and down pit road. During the break, we knew that Gilles DeFerrin was concerned about the speed of the restart, that he did not want it to be that slow. He was in 2nd gear. Then mysteriously, Pete Twitty, the representative for Marlboro Team Penske, showed up at Christian's pit. They had a discussion, and that was exactly what it was about. They asked Christian, could you please pick up the speed? We don't want to start that slow. And other reports for Christian today, his spotter is Walter Salas. Of course, has done a great job behind the wheel of these cars as well. So all the spotting for Christian Fittipaldi is all done in Portuguese.
Another way to help us keep from knowing what's going on. That's what it is.
We don't know what's going on anyway, Paul. Like that
clue.
makes a difference. I can't even get my word order straight half the time. So there you go.
Well, the lights remain flashing on the top of the pace car, and it's still a pretty extensive cleanup. That car, when it backed into the wall, it dropped an awful lot of oil. Gearbox lube as well on the track, and it's going to take them a while yet to clean it up. There is Paul Newman. That's the end part of the Newman-Haas Racing. A guy who she just absolutely loves the racing, and it's wonderful to see him here at the track all the time. He makes every race he can, movie commitments notwithstanding. Rick DeBrule?
Down here in Adrian Fernandez's pit, the king of the strategists down here. All the guys, this is the team that can do it the best. But the problem is now there's nothing left for you guys, is there?
No, it's just, you know, race to the end. We've got to do as well as we can do. Everybody's got enough fuel. Everybody's got tires. Just got to stay out of trouble.
Boz Prowse, the team coordinator. You guys say anything to Adrian out there to pump him up? What do you talk to him about?
Oh, we're just talking to him about all kinds of stuff. How the car is, what we're going to do. If we need to make any more changes, should we have to make another stop, and just basically telling him how the race is going, and just keep going and do as well as you can do.
If you were a betting man at this point, would you bet on it?
No.
Bob Sproul has been around a very long time and knows the minds of almost all the owners and team managers up and down pit road, including a little stint at Penske that gave him some insight there as well. But now I think more than anything else, Fernandez has cast his fate to the wind, and it depends on so very much that has to happen outside of his control.
Well, and you look at the 7 guys on the lead lap now. Fittipaldi has never won on an oval. His only win coming at Elkhart Lake. Roberto Moreno, his first win came this year in Cleveland. He's never won on a super speedway. Alex Barron, he's looking for his first win, obviously trying to revive his career and find a ride for next year. DeFerrin looking at the championship. Casey Mears, a great run, but this is his first race, so obviously this would be just huge for him. Adrian Fernandez, the only guy of this whole group to have won a 500-miler than Alex Tagliani. He's been at the front several times this year. He too could be in the mix, because with this Hanford device, if your car's working in these final few laps, even if you're back 6th or 7th place, you can go right to the front. But for Adrian Fernandez, he's got to hope for a minor miracle here in order to eclipse Gilles DeFerrin and take the lead in the championship.
Elio Castroneves will be the last name to have been added to that cars out race and out of the race graphic, and that leaves us with 8 now in the field. Tarso Marquez is 8th. He is 3 laps behind the race, but the remaining 7 in front of him are all on the lead lap. Christian Fittipaldi, it is his choice on how he wants to come back to the green flag. He is the leader of the race. The pace car has already begun accelerating down the backstretch. Already the pace car is in turn 3 and getting out of the way. Fittipaldi has not yet tried to build the momentum up at all. He maintains the same pace down through the middle of the backstretch, moving the car back and forth. 236 laps into the record book. Will be on 2:37.
Boy, he's bringing him around slow now. He's gotten a great jump the last 2 times. He may have done it again this time, Paul.
Oh, he's definitely going to get it this time. The question is whether or not they're going to decide it was too spread out. They did it once before. No, they say we're green flag. We're going racing. Christian Fittipaldi leads them to the line. Moreno under attack by Alex Barron already. At DeFerrin that you saw sitting back there in 4th place. He needs to just stay right there.
And remember, it was Roberto Moreno who gave Dale Coyne Racing their best finish at the 1996 Michigan 500, and that was a 3rd place. And here's Alex Barron for Dale Coyne, now in 2nd.
There's DeFerrin, then Casey Mears, and look back, there is Fernandez. It's desperate times for Fernandez now.
And he's not making any headway into that group. Gilles DeFerrin has just got to keep this thing up in top gear, breathe the throttle, make sure the engine, the rest of the car gets to the end. Fernandez now actually dropping farther back. That car is simply not working for him, Paul. And if the car's no good on a super speedways, it's a very, very long day indeed.
But what goes on through the mind of Gilles DeFerrin? He's seen those other engines go, he knows certainly that his may in fact be vulnerable.
Oh. And another engine goes, and this time it's Barron. Everybody comes through the area in front of the start-finish line, and it stays green. No, now it goes yellow. Barron gets it off the track right at the end of the pit road, and I've got to tell you, as Fernandez came across the line right behind that, he was on his brakes so hard that they were glowing bright red across the line. The front brakes were just simply glowing. It was plainly visible. Here it is. Just before the line.
Moreno goes through.
Wisely, Barron, and skillfully gets it down. Does that somewhat dangerous transition between the bank and the flat of the warm-up lane. And Adrian Fernandez, he was behind all of this. Let's see if we actually got it on video, because it was impressive. Just stands on the brakes.
There, you can see the glow.
See it glowing.
Yeah, you saw it, Paul. Those are carbon fiber brakes. They have huge operating temperatures. Adrian Fernandez probably sucking in a lot of air there and holding his breath as he came through.
There is Alex Barron. What a great day he put in. Somebody's got to give this guy a good ride. There's Jan. Hopefully he'll be able to talk to him in a second. We're gonna show you this again with Fernandez, because it was something to see.
Now watch as we transition from this outside shot to overhead. You're going to watch the left front wheel, but from the opposite angle, you'll be able to see the brakes glow here. Now keep your eye on that left front. We'll freeze it right here, and you can see it right there.
Yeah, just back it up just a little bit there. We might be able. There you go.
You can see it right there now. The glow from that left front wheel of Adrian Fernandez just standing on the brake pedal.
And brake pedal all the way to the floor. Christian's 19 consecutive laps in the lead, the most consecutive laps that anyone has led today. So we said it was going to be a sprint before. You bet it's going to be now. Like it can be Gilles de Ferran's day. It'll be 9 laps as they cross the line this time by. Alex Barron brought out the yellow flag this time. Once again, when an engine let go. Jan?
Yeah, and it's 2 races in a row for Alex Barron. You were just telling me the last 2 races, it's the best car you've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, if you have cars like this, you enjoy coming to the racetrack and driving the race car. I just can't say enough for the team sports today. Dale Coyne calls a great pit strategy. I mean, we're a lap down because we lost some injectors yesterday, and we were a lap down. And today we had a great car, and we just went right to the front. And I was going for the $1 million there at the end, and it's just too bad. I mean, the Ford motor is really, really strong. And I really thought we could get this race. You know, there was a lot of wet dry over there in turn 2. It was a bit slick, and after I got through there, I knew I could catch Christian, and I get to run full rich, and it was good. It was good, and I just hope I get a job for next year, because I really want to do this. I'm really enjoying driving a car like this.
We hope you get a ride as well. Thank you, Alex.
And Dale Coyne, his owner, spent his time behind the wheel of a champ car as well. Off of the second turn. Onto the backstretch, Christian Fittipaldi. Already the pace car has accelerated. In fact, it's way over in turn 4, and Christian is going to get that momentum again if he can.
Well, he's doing it again. He's doing an SCCA Formula Ford start, bringing him in very, very slowly, trying to get everybody a little off rhythm, adding some throttle, backing out. And when he thinks the whole field is decelled, he's going to plant his foot in it.
They're going to wave it off. They're going to wave it off. They're not going to accept this as a restart.
No, and I tell you, that's actually a very dangerous thing to do, considering how much horsepower these cars have, the stagger they have with the lock differentials. Someone stands on it. We've seen it throughout the history of open wheel cars. Someone's going to make a 90-degree left-hand turn and head right for the inside fence.
So they wave that one off. Moreno, you saw him poking out. He was going to not be directly behind Christian Fittipaldi as they came back. De Ferran sits back in 3rd place. They come back to the flag.
Yeah, they've got to have more speed. They've got to gradually build the speed up. If I were Moreno right now, though, I wouldn't let Christian Fittipaldi have that kind of lead coming back to the green, because even though everything's hunky-dory, everybody's just kind of playing right now, Christian Fittipaldi at any given time might stick his foot back in the throttle. These guys have got to slowly build the speed back up to have a nice, safe start for the sprint to the finish.
And looking up at the front of that field, is this the day you want Ford power?
Well, I want whatever's going to be running at the end with me at the front for $1 million.
Yeah, like I said. Tarso Marquez, by the way, currently running 7th. He may be looking at his best career finish. But now the focus back at the front of the field as they like this start. The green flag comes out. Christian Fittipaldi across the line, followed by Moreno. Alex Tagliani takes a very close look at DeFerrin. At the same time, trying for a move on Fernandez. No, it does not happen.
Yeah, we saw Fernandez get around Casey Mears there as they came by, but I've got to believe Adrian Fernandez is just hanging on for dear life right now. But what we've seen all day long is when these guys have geared up to go to the front, when they've gone down a gear, gone to full rich. We saw it with Blundell as he just took the lead, Michel Jourdain Jr., Juan Montoya. We just saw it with Alex Barron. The motors have not been able to stand the stress. And I tell you, these guys now have got everything they have available, their foot to the floor. If we're going to see additional engines go, it's going to happen in the next few laps as we come to the checkered flag.
The last thing that DeFerrin needs is to argue with Alex Tagliani over something like 3rd place. DeFerrin doesn't need it and shouldn't argue over it, but look what it does overall in our championship battle. It keeps DeFerrin there, but it puts Fernandez looking at his rival right ahead of him. 5 to go now. Fittipaldi leads. There it is. It's real simple. DeFerrin's where he needs to be. Fernandez has got to start pedaling. Laps are going away. 4 to go. There's the championship battle. Fittipaldi is the leader. Moreno is 2nd.
So in the simplest terms right now, if DeFerrin were to have a mechanical problem in DNF, Fernandez would not only have to make up that distance to where DeFerrin was, but also get to and pass Tagliani. That's not going to happen, I'm afraid, Paul. His car is just not handling well. Gilles DeFerrin has just got to lay back and hold his breath.
To add to his trouble, Casey Mears just got around Fernandez. Casey Mears now 5th. 2 to go. 2 to go to the $1 million, potentially for Fittipaldi for winning the race. 2 to go for his first championship, and the $1 million to DeFerrin. We've got a car spinning. A car into the wall. Tagliani, he had an engine let go just before it. It looks like the game may be totally over. Tagliani catches the wall. That was after he got around DeFerrin. It looks like Christian Fittipaldi is going to score win number 2, and Gilles DeFerrin is going to take the championship. The yellow and the white flag will come out at the same time. Christian Fittipaldi crosses the line with 2 miles to go. He's followed by Moreno. Tagliani against the wall. That brings DeFerrin back up into that 3rd place. Casey Mears is going to come forward right behind DeFerrin as well. And Fernandez crosses the line with 1 to go, knowing that his championship has just absolutely and totally gone away. A little prematurely, but it looks like a pretty good move. They began to celebrate down in the Penske pits. They're all up on the wall now, so they can celebrate. You can't take anything away from Christian.
Oh, absolutely not. He drove a great race. He's now finally going to be able to take a breath, get ready for his $1 million check. And, of course, Gilles DeFerrin, all these years of trying, he's been so close. He was a runner-up in the championship, but now his $1 million payday has come, and all the bragging rights, all the reputation that comes with being a kart champion.
They are wonderful stories down the line. Fittipaldi with his 2nd win. Moreno sitting up there in 2nd place after the year that he has had up and down, and gave his first full-time ride a great run. But what about Gilles DeFerrin? One of the nicer men out there. He's quiet, he's reserved, very thoughtful. In all of the meetings you hear him in, he's very careful to pose his questions, but he also wants to make himself quite clear. And what a wonderful story for Casey Mears, who is going to come home in 4th place in his very first race in the Champ Car. And as he comes to the line, record number of winners in a season as Christian Fittipaldi takes the win. Oh, what a day. And there is your new champion. There are a lot of people here with good reason to be happy. The one who should be happy with a fifth, but will not be happy with the lack of championship, is Adrian Fernandez, but there's still plenty to come from him.
With these two guys, with DeFerrin and Fittipaldi taking home $2 million, those are a couple of guys I'd like to party with the next week.
Let's go to Jan Beekes.
And Roger Penske getting the congratulations of just about everybody here. Congratulations, Roger. I know that had to be tough, 500 miles of sweating out a championship.
Well, a lot going on out there today, and everything worked out for us. Did a great job. Hope Elio's okay, and what a deal, what a deal.
Congratulations, beautiful job.
Last night I saw Roger at dinner, and he wasn't smiling. I don't think they were absolutely convinced that they could do this thing. It was a very serious moment, and I think he was holding his breath right until the last minute.
But consider the chance that Roger Penske took coming into this year. He did away with the tried and true Penske chassis that had taken to the championship in '94. They hadn't worked the last few years. He went to Renard chassis. He switched from Mercedes to Honda. From Goodyear to Firestone, hired 2 new drivers. Everything was new. His crew was still there, his engineering staff was still in place, and they came forward to take his 100th victory at Nazareth earlier in the year. Castroneves and DeFerrin also having individual race wins out throughout the year, and here they are coming back to championship form.
Terrific day for Ford. Paul Newman and Carl Haas, they're on the jog down to the winner's circle because they have taken the last victory of this 2000 season. They are still working at Alex Tagliani's car after this accident that brought out the yellow and ended the race. Rick DeBrule?
Well, the team doesn't have a lot of information. The one thing they were saying is right before it happened, he said, I'm going to win this race. I've got the car. So the situation obviously was going for it. Whether that had anything to do with this or whether it was simply an engine letting go or something else, that's something else.
Well, it sure looked like an engine letting go to us.
Yeah, we could see the engine let go, oil the rear tires. The difference between that and Max Pappas's accident, it happened a little earlier in the corner for Tagliani. The momentum, instead of bringing him around towards the middle of the track like Max, sent him up into the wall where he made heavy contact.
We're going to have Fittipaldi as the race winner, Moreno, and Gil DeFerrin all right together there at the winner's circle. Let's go to Gary.
The moment here as Gil DeFerrin thanks and ponders what has taken place. A man we've talked so many times about his great ability to focus, to squeeze everything out, to try to treat the moment as just another race. And today he has achieved the ultimate in open wheel racing with this victory that gives him and Team Penske a championship. It's a very emotional Gil DeFerrin. A year ago at this time, they had announced that he was going to be making the switch, that he would be coming to this team. He was so excited. And then, of course, the great tragedy that cost the life of Greg Moore a year ago at this racetrack and put such a shadow on the preparations and the plans for the team. But as Gil sits here now, we can clearly see him sobbing inside the car. Teammates coming over, trying everyone to give him the space, the time that he needs to reflect on this moment. And as he works to gather his emotions, we'll get a chance to share with him what it feels like. He told us a year ago that it was almost a feeling that he couldn't believe, to be going to the Penske team, to be wearing the Marlboro colors, that it meant so much to him. And as a young Brazilian aspiring to succeed in this sport growing up, that was the level that he wanted to someday reach. Today is the day. He couldn't celebrate yesterday. It won't be a $2 million payday, but it is a championship that nobody can ever take away, and it's $1 million that goes with it to be awarded later this evening at the Championship Auto Racing Team's FedEx Series Awards banquet. They continue to talk with him down here. We'll check the final points on the season as it shakes out. DeFerrin with the championship, Adrian Fernandez battling an ill-handling race car all day, trying to hang on to finish second. And it looks like momentarily now Gil is going to be coming up out of the car. What a time for this team. They're worried, of course, about all the crush of people and cameras and reporters and crew members down here of trying to not do anything to the race car, which will have to pass a technical inspection. That should be a mere formality. Now the helmet comes off. The Hans device that he was wearing, head and neck shoulder restraint, trying to help him in the event of an impact. The adventures of all the other Honda power plants today that made this one somewhat in doubt, even to the final laps. Excuse me, Pete, let me get up here. There's nothing like it in all of sports. Jill DeFerrin. I think the emotion is obvious. You've had some time to try to collect your thoughts here, and is it starting to sink in that you've just achieved a dream?
I don't know, Gary. I can hardly talk right now. It's I dreamed that all my life.
How many times this year have we talked about emotion in this sport? How many times have we seen the displays? Here comes Angela, his wife, literally her body being thrown over the top of the car to embrace her husband, and they share this magic time. We get a chance, we'll ask him about the adventures of the day. We think back in that one yellow flag when he was so very close to the contact involving Michael Andretti and the debris. Joe, let's take you back just quickly, if we can, to that situation under yellow. When you went through the smoke, how close was it? Were you involved in contact? Was that the closest call of the day?
I tell you, the Lord was on my side today, because I thought that was it. We were gone. There was smoke everywhere. So Servia, they started to spin, and then Michael appeared in the middle of the smoke, and I was on the brakes, off the brakes, on the brakes, off the brakes, and tried to turn it down. And I tell you, it's a very close call, but it was a fantastic day for us today. The car was really handling quite nice. I drove around the whole day just to try to wait to get to the end.
How worried were you about being able to go the distance because of what had happened to the other drivers, including your teammates, with the Honda power plant this day?
Well, you know, we always knew that this race it's a race of attrition. It's always difficult to get to the end. That's what I was telling right from when we started here, and you know, that proved to be the case today. But you know, they Honda and the whole Marlboro team, Penske, they prepared these things like I have no idea. Everything run very, very smoothly all day. So
a lot of pressure lifted off your shoulders now?
I don't know.
I know you wanted to have a couple of drinks last night. It was postponed. Maybe you can have a couple now.
Thank you.
The Vanderbilt Cup, the $1 million, all to be awarded. Here's Roger Penske sharing in the ovation once again. The emotion in victory lane. Paul?
So congratulations to Jill DeFerrin, his crew chief Matt Johnson, who we've spent plenty of good moments this year teasing about him. There he is over Jill's shoulder, and the rest of the team about the exuberance that they showed at the 100th Penske win. And over the finishing line, there are 3 Brazilian flags flying, one each for the top 3 positions. Jan Beekes.
Well, we've been talking about $1 million for the championship, $1 million for the winner of this race as well, Christian Fittipaldi. Congratulations. Was it actually a bit easier not having to worry about a championship?
No, I have to say that the whole race was very difficult. A lot of incidents. You had to make sure that you kept your nose clean all the time. We were running very conservative the whole race because we knew we had a very good car for the last 15 laps. And it worked out perfect, but I have to admit that I lucked out a little bit today. There were a couple of incidents that should have caught me out there, and it didn't. Everything went my ways, and the same way I lost a couple of races, I won this one. So I'm very thankful, especially to Ford, that even though that we're not running with them next year, they did a great job, and they have been with Carl for a whole bunch of years.
Now, one of those scary times was when Tony Kanaan blew an engine. You went through the smoke screen. Did you have any idea what was on the other side?
Zero. That was a situation that I was very, very lucky. Like, Tony blew the engine. I ran into his smoke, and then he was very clever to slowly pull the car down and not stand on the brakes, and I came out of the smoke very, very lucky.
Oh, it's a banner day for the Brazilians, $1 million each. Christian Fittipaldi, our 500 winner. Rick?
Well, standing by with possibly the most frustrated man on pit lane, Adrian Fernandez, and this was not the car you wanted today.
No, unfortunately not. It was bad from the start. I mean, we never managed to make it better, and you know, you had too much push. Anything we did to the car, then it still got more push, and then you know, it got loose a few times. I almost lost it, and one of the restarts. And also I started having a misfire on the engine like mid through the race, and I started losing some power, and then it came back. I thought, you know, I thought my day was over at that time, but You know, it was frustrating because I really couldn't, you know, I couldn't really attack too much.
But you stayed in there. The hope was there till the end, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I couldn't. You have to be patient and see what you have. I mean, I was very close to put it on the wall a few times, and, you know, it just basically a warning that the car wasn't there. So, but, you know, I'm happy for the guys. I mean, this is a tremendous year for us. It's the best of my career, and Patrick Racing gave me the best opportunity. 4 engines stayed there at the end, and you know, unfortunately, we didn't have the car to give a run for his money to Jill, but, you know, well deserved for him, for the Penske team. You know, they were very strong all year, but I'm very happy also for my guys here.
All right, great. A very gracious runner-up here in Adrian Fernandez.
So Adrian Fernandez does everything that he needs to do, but it's not enough. It's Gil DeFerrin that wins the championship. And Christian Fittipaldi, he wins the race and split up $1 million. DeFerrin heads over to the winner's circle so he can celebrate officially his championship here. Alex Tagliani was injured in that crash, but they say they're not life-threatening. We'll be back with more. Thousands of miles of racing, and Gil DeFerrin has his first championship.
All right, good job, Gil. All right.
I enjoy driving because of the sensation of driving, and I enjoy racing because I enjoy the competition because I want to win.
Good job, Gil. Number 2, good job.
Well, they scratched and they fought for each and every one of those points, and at the final race of the season, in the final minutes of the season, the final miles, there is how the final standings are in the CART FedEx Championship Series. Finishing second was Roberto Moreno. Here's Jan.
Yes, with his wife Celia here in Victory Circle. Roberto, you had 2 jobs today. You wanted to win the race, but also you're trying to help Adrian Fernandez. But looked like his car maybe just didn't have it, so then you were loose to try and win this thing.
Well, that's the name of the game. You got to try to do it. And I knew a 500-mile race. It's the last stint that matters. And if there wasn't a yellow, I was still hoping I would have a shot at Christian. Never mind. It's great result for the Vision team. And they're great. They got me from nowhere today all the way to second. It's just been fantastic. And we had a good car to fight towards the end. So I'm very, very pleased with everything that happened throughout the year with the Vision team. We had ups and downs, but we had lots of ups, and it paid off. And we're third on the championship. Not bad for what I call a full-time, first-time full-time competitive ride.
So what's for you next year? You've gone from full-time, now third in the championship. Pretty confident for a championship next year?
Well, we're going to have to first shop around to see where I will end up as a drive. But once that's over, we'll for sure land. I think I will land a good drive for next year, and we'll be strong on the championship.
Are you joking, or you do not have a ride with Patrick?
I'm not saying that. I just say that I need to shop around to see what I get.
Wow, what a way to end the season, guys.
Well, the results are, of course, unofficial for a little while longer, but I don't see anything that should be contested. Christian Fittipaldi has scored his second victory, followed by Moreno. Gil DeFerrin takes the point for the pole, finishes third, and wins the championship. We're still waiting for any further details on the condition of driver Alex Tagliani. We'll wait to get anything officially, but the first report was that he did have injuries, but that they were not life-threatening. There are the unofficial results complete then for the running of the 500 at California Speedway. And we wait too, hoping that we can give you the glimpse of the trophies being presented to everybody. There's the Vanderbilt Cup. It's all ready. They're ready to go. Let's go back to Gary.
Pulling Gil DeFerrin literally away from countless interviews because the Vanderbilt Cup awaits. He steps outside the actual victory lane area, and here is this beautiful gleaming piece of hardware that is about to be presented. The FedEx Series champion for the year 2000, and Gil DeFerrin doing it in most dramatic fashion, going down to the final laps as he takes possession. A quick thought about the beauty of this magnificent cup.
What can I say, Gary? He says it all. That's what we work our life, just to touch this once.
You know what? They're going to fill it up with $1 million a little later tonight for you.
Hey, that's a bonus.
Yes, it is.
There it is. It's official. Interesting comment that the $1 million is merely a bonus. And you know what? When we talked to them on Thursday, all of the contenders echoed that.
These drivers drive because they love to drive. They want to be one of the best in the world. The money is just an added sweet treat.
Well, this ties the record also for the fewest number of cars running at the conclusion of a race. It was a day of attrition. It's been a season of surprises and a wonderful season in the Kart FedEx Championship Series. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sport. For more, log on to ESPN.com. And as we leave you, we want to review some of the great moments of this season past and tell you that this race team, thanks to everybody here that has helped bring these telecasts to you throughout the year. Congratulations to Gilles de Ferran and to Christian Fittipaldi.
The new millennium is underway. And Cristiano Ronaldo has taken the victory. Roger Penske takes win number 100. Roberto Moreno has done it. Finally, Roberto Moreno is the king. Montoya, now Andretti, and they almost touched. They may have touched. And Montoya takes the Michigan 500. And the championship goes on to Fontana.